am calling this meeting of the Somerville School Committee to order. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2024, this meeting of the School Committee will be conducted via hybrid participation. We will post an audio recording, audio-video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of these proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting on the City of Somerville website and local cable access government channels. Dr. Carmona, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Barish.
Here.
Mayor Ballantyne.
Recording in progress.
President Owen Campen. Mr. Green.
Here.
Mr. Bitton.
Here.
Ms. Bitton.
Present.
Dr. Ackman.
Here.
Dr. Phillips.
Present.
Ms. Krepchen.
Here.
We have quorum.
We will now start with a moment of silence and a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The awards and citations are being tabled until our next meeting. That brings us to the report of our Student Advisory Committee, who are joining us via Zoom. Anna Sophia, are you here?
Yeah. So this past Friday was our senior prom. AP exams happened last week. They just finished. Wednesday is our seniors' last day. They'll have a class day following that, as well as a student-organized field day on the same day. Sports are coming to a close. The baseball team won the GBL title, and the track team have their GBL meet today.
Great news. Thank you for that. Are there any questions for our student rep? Great. Thank you for joining us this evening. That brings us to approval of minutes. I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve the minutes from March 3rd. Second.
I have motion by Ms. Barish, seconded by Dr. Phillips to approve the minutes. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. So we normally have public comment at the beginning of our meeting, but because we have students joining us this evening to give their very exciting presentation, we will be starting with that civics project. After that, we will resume with public comment. So we're really excited to welcome our 8th graders here this evening. I don't know if Dr. Carmona. I'm glad we can all agree on our excitement on welcoming these students here this evening. Dr. Carmona, did you want to say a few words before we join them?
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, everyone. First of all, thank you for all of you to be here present, especially our 8th graders. We have already met with them, and it was a display of commitment, engagement, and the civic engagement that we saw through this process is the kind of work that we have to see, we want to see our students do, engaging on having solutions related to our local communities. So with that in mind, I also will ask everyone to be as quiet as possible. We have students here, and their voices need to be projected. So what you're doing right now is excellent. So thank you very much. And with no further ado, I'm going to have our 8th graders come up to the podium.
How you feeling? As 8th graders at the Winter Hill Community Innovation School, the last 4 years have been challenging. Towards the end of 4th grade in March 2020, our school building at 115 Sycamore Street closed because of COVID. In spring 2021, when we returned to in-person learning, our school building had a bad ventilation system, so we finished 5th grade on Zoom or at Somerville High. For sixth grade, which is the 2021-2022 school year, we were back at 115 Sycamore Street, but dealing with a lot of serious problems with the building. The more serious problem, however, was the piece of concrete that fell in May 2023, forcing us to finish 7th grade at Tufts University. Now it is our 8th grade year, and we are at the Edgerly Education Center in East Somerville. That is 4 buildings in 4 years. Our community has an important decision to make. How will we rebuild the Winter Hill School?
Last December, the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or MSBA, gave a grant to Somerville to cover at least 50% of the cost to rebuild our school. There is also some wiggle room to rebuild the Brown School, the other dilapidated school building in our city. Mayor Ballantyne and the City of Somerville have presented 5 options for addressing the 2 school buildings. There are pros and cons and trade-offs with each of the 5 options, and that can vary by who you ask. For our civic action project this year, we decided to study the past, present, and future of our school. As part of that, we have 4 goals. 1. Research the 5 proposed options for rebuilding Winter Hill and Brown. 2. Share information about the 5 options with the community in all the languages we speak: English, Spanish, Portuguese, and Haitian Creole. Survey the school community about their preferences. 4. Share our findings with everyone.
We first needed to research the structure of the municipal government. Which we did by reading excerpts from the city charter. From that, we learned how the roles and responsibilities of the mayor, the city council, and the school committee are divided up when it comes to school buildings, budgets, and other related topics. We also learned about some of the important appointed positions in Somerville, such as executive directors who are appointed by the mayor, and the superintendent who is appointed by the school committee. This helped us understand who has been, is, and will be involved and decision-making about our school. Then watch old school committee meetings where people talked about our school buildings needs.
With our background knowledge on local government, we then focused our research on 5 options. Since 4 of the 5 options involve combining 2 Somerville schools, we used the Department of Education's district profiles to make graphs and table of demographics of the whole district. The individual schools and the estimated data are 2 possible combinations: Brown and Kennedy in option B, and Winter Hill and Brown in options C, D, and E. Finally, we made informational videos and handouts in all 4 of our grades' homes languages to help teach each other in the 5 options.
The final major step was designing and conducting our surveys. Since we believe that everyone has a right to voice their opinions, we took on the responsibility of hearing from as many people as possible. We made a Google Forms survey for educators, which we sent out to all staff at Winter Hill, Brown, and Kennedy. For surveying students, we made 3 options. One involved no reading and writing, one involved a little reading writing, one involved a fair bit of reading and writing. This way, all students, regardless of reading level and language level, could participate. Finally, we made a public community survey, which we shared through social media, parent-teacher association networks, and conversation with friends and family members.
We had 602 total participants in our survey. 304 students took our survey. The participants came from 2 schools, 274 students from Winter Hill and 30 students from Brown. 77 educators took our survey. The educators came from all 3 buildings that could be impacted by the plans: the Winter Hill, the Brown, and the Kennedy. 221 people took our survey, our community survey. The posters out front have our data results. We will also publish our final report on our class website and Instagram soon.
From all of our data collection, we observed several important trends. First, from the ratings and rankings, option A is the most preferred choice, with option C a close second, and option E is a somewhat distant third choice. Options B and D are the least preferred. It is important to understand why survey participants liked and did not like options A, C, and E. Common reasons that people like option A are that it is the easiest for drop-offs and pickups, and it preserves the current school communities. On the flip side, the most common reasons that people did not like option A are that it is the longest to build, it's the most expensive, and it keeps our schools segregated.
People like option C said so because they like the idea of more classmates. It will support more diversity. It also helped desegregate the school. It's more affordable because the MSBA funding can be used for the whole entire construction project. And it's also one faster building timeline. On the other hand, people who do not like option C said so because it's harder for students on the west side of the city to get to Sycamore Street. It will be too big because it will change the school community. We will have 2 comments on these. First, based on our calculation, a combined Winter Hill and Brown school would be more fewer students than the current East Somerville. Second, we calculated the demographic of a combined Winter Hill and Brown. It's more representative of the whole Winter Hill, of the whole Somerville district than most current school. Finally, our survey participant like option E because it's a longer plot of land, a good size school, it's faster build time, it's affordable because the MSBA funding can be used for the whole entire construction project. It will be more diverse. It will help desegregate the school system. On reverse, some survey participants did not like option E because it's harder for students to get to it, and it changes our current school community, and it would take away important green space.
When looking just at the student data, most students across both schools had a preference for option A. Current Winter Hill students were more likely than current Brown students to like options C and E. But our sample size of Brown students was only 30, so we cannot make as clear a conclusion as we can about Winter Hill students because we surveyed 274 of them. However, the youngest students who took the survey, the first and second graders at Winter Hill, overwhelmingly liked the idea of going to a bigger school because they thought it would be nice to have more friends and more space and opportunities at school. When focusing just on educator data, there were a few things to note. First, Kennedy educators really do not want to lose their parking lot. Second, educators were more split on their preferences compared to the 2 students in the general community survey. In fact, it took 3 rounds of ranked choice voting for option A to get a majority, and it was a very narrow majority, with 47% of educators split between option C and E.
When looking at the community survey results, option A was the highest preference. In fact, it had a small majority after just the first round of ranked choice voting. We also looked for keywords with high frequency in the explanations to infer participants' core values. We inferred that the community cares a lot about the cost to taxpayers, an efficient building timeline, green space, easy access, or transportation to school, and a sense of community at the school. Those inferred values guided our deeper analysis and problem solving. The first discussion we had was to see if there were any mismatched ideas between the comments and values and how the options were rated. The big thing that stood out is the option A is the most expensive and longest timeline, but is still the biggest preference. Maybe cost and time are less valued by the community than green space. Transportation and the school community. We do not know enough to say for sure, though. We also point out that some participants did not understand the 5 options and might not have watched the informational video on the top of our survey because the response did not make any sense or reflected the facts. So it can be hard to analyze those. The second discussion we had was, what do we think people mean when they talk about the school community and neighborhood schools? Since these ideas came up so much, including from ourselves, we think people like their communities because they are comfortable there. They are used to it. They have a shared history and identity. They can be scared of change or something new. They know the other people there, and they like the group personality and vibe from there. We reflect on some reasons that making a larger school and student population could be a good thing, and what programs, traditions, or new things we could create in a bigger school that would help build community. We encourage everyone to reflect on what they mean by a community school too, a school community too.
The third and final discussion we had was ways to make the options better for that the people who dislike them might like them more. For example, if the city picks option C or E, then they could add a school bus system to help students get to a location that is too far to walk. Or if the city picks option E, then the old Winter Hill and Brown schools could become new green spaces or a teen center with a large event space that people, organizations, or schools could rent out. There was also a lot of good advice and ideas in survey participant responses. Some people had solutions for parking problems. Some had ideas about K-5 schools everywhere, and then one middle school. And some reminded us that the next school building needs to be carbon neutral. We do not have time to analyze all the comments, but we think our elected leaders and the school building committee should read them closely.
Our research results take us in many directions, and at times it feels like there is no option that people will like. Ultimately, we think the youngest students said it best: a bigger school can mean more friends and more opportunities. Also, the current first and second graders are the most likely to be in a new Winter Hill building, so we need to really listen to them. With that in mind, we have designed the Dream School based on what we know and what we heard from our interviews. We hope it is the one that gets built.
The ideal Winter Hill will have a large outdoor area with playgrounds for students of all ages, a soccer field with nets, and a basketball court. It will have a pool, an auditorium, a large cafeteria, good food, a computer lab, and an outdoor eating area. It should offer more languages other than Spanish and more specialist classes. It could even have a Portuguese or Haitian Creole bilingual program. We also think that the snacks and lunches could include foods from our home countries so we can share in each other's cultures and get a reminder of our other homes. It will also have lockers for students starting in 7th grade. The classrooms will be larger so everyone has space, especially the younger grades and AIM classrooms. And the bathrooms will be in good condition. Lastly, there should be more funding for field trips, and the building should have a nice color scheme that does not hurt your eyes to look at.
Transportation to and from school is a real challenge, with younger siblings to take care of, with home and work responsibilities, and with public bus routes that do not match up with where the school buildings are located. It can be hard. Some of us had to wake up 30 minutes earlier every day this year just to get to Edgerly on time. To make transportation easier for ourselves and all Somerville students, we designed a school bus system.
The school buses could do routes all around Somerville, so no matter where you live, you can get to the school you choose to go to or the school your program is at. There would be an app in all languages so you can see where the buses are and which one you can catch based on where you need to go and when.
The buses would also have trackers in them so families can see where their children are if they get worried. After school, the school buses would go again and would be a way for students to get their intramural games that are at different schools, to the library, to their jobs at Teen Empowerment or elsewhere, and back home at their home neighborhood. We do not think the buses would have to stop at everyone's houses. We think it is appropriate that students can walk about 10 minutes to a stop. This also makes it easier for parents and grandparents because they do not need to take their children everywhere.
The school buses would have SPS Wi-Fi, so if we need to access Google Classroom or anything, we'll be able to study or do homework on the bus. Lastly, the school buses should be able to take the bus lanes. We are really excited about the new Winter Hill, and we hope the younger and future Wildcats are so happy there. We hope it gets built with lots of extra capacity so that we will never be overcrowded, and so that other students who are interested in the new school will be able to go.
This project was not just for our civics class requirement, but also a service to our community. We have been working on this since February. We started a citywide conversation about the options and people's preferences. Everyone might say that students' voices matter, and we were the ones who made sure their voices were heard. This project also brought up a lot of emotions for us, because when we stop and think about all the moves we have had in the last 4 years and why they have had to happen, it really is not fair. It has been extraordinarily challenging and tiring to move so much and have to adapt quickly and frequently. We have a great sense of urgency in getting a new building for Winter Hill so we can be stable again.
We have 4 requests as a way to honor and celebrate all the work we have done and as a way to repair the pain and anger from the last few years. Number 1 is major decision-making moments from the school building community should involve the Wildcats. We propose that the school building community communicate regularly with next year's 8th graders about upcoming decisions, so next year's 8th graders can survey the younger grades like we did.
When it comes time to demolish 115 Sycamore Street, we would like to participate. It would be very cathartic to break some of the things that are not already broken.
Number 3, the younger and future Winter Hill Wildcats do not have to deal with the things we had to deal with. They should get to enjoy their time in school and be proud of who they are and where they go to school. They really need recess activities and play materials for as long as they are at the Edgerly.
Number 4 is, when it is time to break ground on the new Winter Hill, which seems to be about 4 years away, we would like to be the ones who first dig the dirt or cut the ceremonial ribbon. That would be a really nice high school graduation gift in June 2028.
Allá en el medio.
This project was only possible because a lot of people helped us. We're grateful to the younger Wildcats, Principal Goss and Assistant Principal Barrows, our educators, our custodians,
our parents and families, Miss Michaela Yang, Miss Elaine Metzger, and Miss Angie Supri, for translating all of our materials so our whole school community could participate in the survey.
The Parent-Teacher Association at Winter Hill, the Somerville Education Union, the city councilors and school committee members who responded and encouraged us. State Representative Christine Barber for being a big early supporter and coming to our school.
Thank you.
So now that you've all been lucky enough to meet my 8th graders, I'm Miss Brady, I'm the civics teacher, and I was, thank you. I follow where the kids ask me to lead, and I see there might be some questions or whatnot, so I'm happy to be the go-between for any questions.
Thank you so much. Dr. Phillips.
Thanks, through you, Chair. Thank you for the work that you have done, for coming to present it to us. As a researcher, speaking to fellow researchers, I'm really impressed by your skills. And my question to you is really, so the mayor's the ultimate decision maker here. Do you have a meeting with her scheduled?
I guess I'll answer that one. Yes, the mayor is coming to our school in about a week and a half to meet with the 8th graders.
Thank you so much for all your work, your commitment to the community, not just the Winter Hill community, but really the broader community as well. Thank you for coming tonight. The students asked us to carefully review the various ideas and comments, the more sort of qualitative data that they collected. That is available on the class website, or will it be sent to us, or how do we access that?
Sure. So there's printouts of it outside right now on the trifolds. We will be publishing our final report with the quantitative and qualitative data later this week. We are getting it translated into all of our target languages first, and when we have all 4 languages, then we publish all of it then.
Thank you. I have Mr. Green and then Ms. Patone. Mr. Green.
So I want to echo my colleagues' thanks for your efforts, but more importantly, I want to thank you for your results. I've been listening to families and communities on this issue for 2.5 years and I could have just waited for you guys. You gave me basically what I've been hearing from families, and you did a better job of explaining the pros and cons of the 5 options than the city did in their formal presentation, and you did it about a 10th of the time.
Can I uplift something about that?
Sure.
There was a time there where the only non-English descriptions of the 5 options were what came out of our class.
Yep. And while my guess is we want to give the students everything they want in a dream school, I am mindful of some things we can start doing right now. As a school representative to the building committee, I can pledge to meet, and you and I can discuss the details of this later, regularly with 8th grade next year and for the length of the project. So we can definitely do that. And you had an idea that is, you mentioned the snacks and the native cultures. according to the budget we were just passing under the mayor's advice, we should have money in the revolving account for food to look into what it would take to do that. So I think we should look into that. I can't make any promises, I don't know, but it's something that seems like something we can do even before the new school, so we should look into how we can do that.
That would be great. We have an 8th grade field trip in a week and a half. Maybe we could get some treats for it. And let's do it. They've worked so hard. They deserve it.
You've learned an important rule of advocacy, which is if people aren't saying no to you, you're asking for enough. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Carmona?
I just wanted to thank some silent voices that are behind the work and are probably not being fully recognized. I know the principal, the assistant principal, Isabel Barros, and Mrs. Corney. We have the PTA who has been behind the work, and a lot of parents that I see who are behind the scenes helping with microphone, helping with voices. I also wanted to thank the students. Every time you talk about the reliability of the data or the validity of the data, I am saying, wow, that is what we are all about. Is that right? Making sure that the students can see themselves as researchers, as statisticians. And I have to thank also Megan Brady for the significant contribution on bringing this to the floor. So this is amazing. Thank you. And I also, I know State Rep Christine Barber is here. I know we went to the school. I think that as much as we can have support, not only locally, but at the state level, so we can actually create the spaces that are deserving of our students, that will be a great day. So before you leave on your way out, there are posters outside, so the kids work really hard on those, so make sure that you take a pic of those. But I really wanted to thank you for the hard work and all of you for your drive and your bravery to be here in front of all of us. So thank you very much for joining us here.
Ms. Patone. Ms. Patone.
Thank you, through you, Chair Krepchen. This is a series of compliments. I'm incredibly impressed, and I know a lot of educators here understand the idea of real work and how, real hands-on work matters to students, and that if we give them the opportunity to do this type of work, they can always step up with the support of our educators. So I just want to compliment that. The process of our students learning about municipal government, understanding what the roles, responsibilities, and levers, probably better than many of us in the city, and then combining that with something that you as students are so passionate about. I wanted to compliment also the fact that you did different levels of surveys, and you did surveys in different languages, so how important access is, and the work you did to do that. Also, ranked choice voting. What a really interesting experience for you as students, so thank you for including that. I echo my colleague, Mr. Green, that the options and the description of options, and I also really appreciate how students spoke to sort of the emotional impact of this project and the times over the last 4 or 5 years. I was really moving, but it also shows sort of growth and learning. So I just want to compliment you on that. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ms. Brady. Thank you, the whole team. It was really fantastic.
Am I allowed to comment on that?
Yeah, go ahead, of course.
I just wanted to say that the reason this project was possible was obviously the enthusiasm and the passion of our students, but it's also that I was lucky this year to have a full-time student teacher. So I effectively had a co-teacher, which meant that I had 2 adults in the room, and that's what was transformative for this project to happen. So if we want this to happen again, we are talking about a radical investment in our schools, because a 7% budget is not that.
Mr. Green?
Sure. So I have the privilege of getting a sneak peek of this. So that means I've had tweets out questions, so forgive me, I've had a bunch. The first one is, I found the insight about the first and second graders really insightful, and thinking to highlight their voices really impactful. But I'd love to know more, if we know more, and about like what were other differences we saw amongst how students felt about the project. 'Cause it's really easy here, and Somerville loves to do. The community says this, and we know different communities say different things. I'd love to hear more about that, if we know it.
Does anyone want to speak to that? Do we remember any comments from the younger grades or older grades? For like the different options and their rationale, their reasons. We might.
I got you.
Do you remember?
They want playground space.
They want playground space and equipment for their playground too. And a soccer field.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the "and" there, that last bit.
What else? Yeah, come on up. Yeah, come on up. I didn't do the surveys.
And some younger students just don't want their school to look like a jail from the outside. They don't want their hallways to be all plain like it is right now. They want stuff that they had in the Winter Hill now in this school. They want an actual playground they can use, and they want working bathrooms.
A lot of students said they wanted a bigger cafeteria and a gym, also like better bathrooms and hallways, just like a better building in general.
A lot of the students also stated that they wanted no rats in the classrooms or anything. The rodent problem is very bad, and that they didn't want any rats in the classrooms, and they wanted like bigger and like better classrooms and everything, and like more materials in the classrooms and stuff.
Yeah, like she said, no rats, like a rodent-free building, because the rats, I've seen it firsthand. It's really disgusting. Like they actually scurry across the classroom floors.
They also want working ACs and an auditorium. They want working ACs in an auditorium.
A lot of students want lockers from like 7th grade, and also like to keep the soccer field, because I think that means a lot to the Winter Hill.
Another kid told me that they want a building that doesn't fall down. They don't want a building that doesn't fall down, that doesn't break.
Many students said they wanted better lunch. Yeah.
And we do also have the copies of all the original surveys as well, so we can also go back to it. Well, not this school year, but.
Great. Mr. Green?
All right. I'll save the rest of the questions for the raw data, and you and I can sit down and dig through that. I just wanted to say one last thing, which is, we had all these students come, and we're very proud of them. And obviously, we expect to see proud parents and, tears shed for that. But what amazes me and what, proves that the Winter Hill is still a special community is how proud they obviously were of each other. And that is rare, especially in middle school, that's rare and magical. And just thank you so much for everything.
Yeah.
Bigger bathrooms if possible.
Okay. Okay, thank you again so much for that amazing presentation. With no further questions, we will let you all go. I know you have to be up early for school tomorrow, so thank you.
Okay, thank you.
shared with you.
Take that.
I'm going to let people filter out because it's going to be too chaotic to try to.
We get it.
Okay, that brings us to the public comment portion of our meeting. Before we begin, I'm going to read a few words, and then I'm going to read our directions for public comment. Good evening. Before public comment, I'd like to take a few minutes to explain when a member of the school committee is speaking for themselves or for the full body. No member of the school committee, including myself as chair, speaks for the full committee until the full body deliberates and votes on something. In compliance with state open meeting law, we also don't discuss items that aren't on the agenda. This means that individual members will often bring things up during the items from board members part of the meeting that are are not on the agenda and are therefore not discussed as part of the meeting. That means issues and opinions raised during items from board members, or really any item for which the school committee does not deliberate and vote, are those of individual members, not the full body. Deciding what is free speech and what is hate speech is not within the purview of the school committee. What is in our purview is simply making sure that the district follows state and federal laws. I'm so glad that all of you are here to express your opinions on these complicated issues. I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say, but I'm going to do everything I can to keep the conversation civil. With that in mind, I need to read our public comment policy and highlight a few things. Dr. Carmona, did you want to say a few words before?
Yes, can you hear me back there? I wonder we should close the door so the vote. No? Okay, I got you. So take it back. Take it back. I just wanted to say that we unequivocally condemn all xenophobic rhetoric and attacks, including anti-Semitic, anti-Palestinian, anti-Israel, anti-Arab, and Islamophobic hate. We have been consistent about that, and we care about our students, our community, and that is what we're here for. So I just wanted to highlight our commitment to those values.
And now I will read our official public comment instructions. Welcome and thank you to those who have signed up for public comment. Speakers will be allowed 3 minutes to present their material. However, the chair may limit comments to 2 minutes based on the number of individuals signed up, and given the number signed up, it will definitely be 2 minutes. Speakers should begin their comments by stating their name and address, or in the case of district employees, their role within the district. The chair of the meeting, after a warning, reserves the right to terminate speech which is not constitutionally protected because it constitutes true threats that are likely to provoke a violent reaction and cause a breach of the peace, or incitement to imminent lawless conduct, or which contains obscenities. Public comment is not a discussion, debate, or dialogue between the public and the committee. Members of the committee will not reply to public comment in the course of the meeting, though individual members may follow up and items from public comment may be taken up in future meetings. The school committee will not hear personal complaints of school personnel nor against any member of the school community in public session. Individuals may address topics on the agenda or items within the school committee's scope of responsibility, such as the district budget, goals, and policies, or role of the superintendent. The public is encouraged to submit comments in writing for inclusion in the public record. And also just to note, there is a clock, a timer here, so you will know when your time is almost up. I will read 3 names at a time, so you know when it is almost your time to come up. And I apologize in advance if I mispronounce your name. Please tell me how to pronounce it correctly when you come to the podium. So first I have Sarah Halawa, Carlos Contreras, and then Leila Arbaraka. Sarah, the floor is yours.
I have a point of order question per Superintendent Carmona's anti-xenophobic rhetoric statement that he read. He said that there would be no anti-Israel speech allowed. And I just wanted to confirm if you meant anti-Israel or anti-Israeli.
Can you explain the difference to me?
Yes, critiquing the state of Israel right now, I believe, is not anti-Semitic and or xenophobic. But in your no xenophobia.
We have to keep the door open because of the open meeting law. Sorry.
Oh, I thought you were talking to me. So there's a difference between critiquing a government and a state and being xenophobic. So can you reread your comment, your statement about xenophobia?
So you want me to reread the statement?
I do. I just want to clarify if it's anti-Israel or anti-Israeli.
Okay, so here we go. We unequivocally condemn all xenophobic rhetoric and attacks, including anti-Semitic, anti-Palestinian, anti-Israel, anti-Arab, and Islamophobic hate.
So people are not allowed to critique Israel tonight?
That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, in general, that's our commitment.
Are we allowed to make anti-Israel comments?
Mr. Green, did you want a point of order? Make a
couple. One, I understand your question.
Great.
I think it's getting lost in translation. That said, I would, as a matter of our procedures and policies, even critiquing foreign governments isn't really our scope, so I'd be careful of that from that front of view for either side. Just making sure that we're not, just think like. School committee.
Education of children.
So, I am.
Okay, we only have, please, it's only the committee speaking right now.
So while obviously the events are relevant to the conversation, there's a limit. So be mindful of that. But I do not believe the superintendent's intention, nor the policy's intention, to say that any critique of a government is prima facie xenophobic and out of line.
Thank you, Chair Member Green.
With that, we're going to start public comment with Sarah Halawa.
Thank you. My name is Sarah Halawa, and I live at 43 Monroe Street. I'm a mom and stepmom of 5 Palestinian-American children. My stepdaughters were SPS kids. And I am here today to ask every single member of this school committee to speak against Israel's genocide of Palestinians and stand up for our brave student protesters. You all should be so proud of them. I know I am. My late father was Jewish. Europeans were responsible for the racist violence against my Jewish family. Israel and Israelis are responsible for the racist violence against my husband's Palestinian family. You should trust that every single Palestinian you meet has a personal story of brutality and oppression at the hands of Israel. To my horror, in October, Israel, in the name of protecting Jewish safety, announced a plan for Palestinians or human animals trapped in Gaza, and in just 2 weeks, Israel had killed more children than attend Somerville High. I've never seen so many images of dead babies in my life. For 8 months, Somerville High students have been watching Israel's atrocities live streamed on their phones. And a few weeks back, when Israel invaded Rafah, I got a text from a Somerville High student, and it was the image of a dead baby with her abdomen missing, bloodied, and she wrote, "This looks like my baby sister. She had the same sleep sack." These children are bearing witness to this genocide alone because the leaders of our school have chosen to remain silent. Grieving, angry, and looking for hope, they have started organizing. They did a walkout in November. 150 of them signed a letter to all of you asking you to acknowledge the genocide and call for a ceasefire. You decided to remain silent. In this moment of genocide, our call from the river to the sea is the opposite of hate speech. It is love speech. When people are oppressed, we have a responsibility to stand in solidarity with them and call for their liberation. We did this when we said Black Lives Matter after witnessing police kill George Floyd, Mike Brown, Breonna Taylor, and right now it is the most important thing we can do to say together, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Thank you.
Your time is up. I have Carlos Contreras, then Leila Arabaka, and then Alan Jalen. Carlos, the floor is yours.
My name is Carlos Contreras. I'm an educator at Somerville High School. According to the district website, the school committee defines equity as, quote, providing access to the opportunities, support, environment, expectations, and resources that every student needs to achieve educational success, feel valued, and contribute to a thriving community, end quote. So I can't help but wonder, where does penalizing students with unexcused absences for protesting fall within that definition? Is this how the school committee ensures that students feel valued? Personally, I can't think of a better way for students to have opportunities to contribute to a thriving community than to walk out of school in protest of a genocide that's being aided and abetted by their own government. What's more, when our students have looked to their local elected officials, including this school committee, for guidance and leadership during these difficult times, their pleas for justice have been met with silence, and their actions likened to white nationalists. I think what's really happening in this community and across the country is that young people are showing the adults in power what true leadership looks like. Young people are telling us that they don't want to continue participating in an unjust society that they did not create. So I ask that the school committee demonstrate some courage and leadership by upholding the excused absence policy, stop disciplining students and staff for using the phrase "from the river to the sea," publicly apologize for intimidating and comparing our students to white nationalists, openly condemn the ongoing genocide against Palestinians, and call for a ceasefire now. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Alan Jalen, and then Gabby Argbola. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Layla Eden Abarca Gresh. I'm a descendant of Mexican Sephardic Jews who spoke Ladino, a Judeo-Spanish. I speak English, French, and Spanish, and hope to soon learn Arabic. I see my Judaism as a form of humanity in which we sanctify life. I've lived in Somerville for 11 years. I'm 16, and I'm a junior at Somerville High School. I'm the founder of Somerville High for Palestine Group and Massachusetts High Schools for Palestine organization as well. I'm here today because I'm appalled to see the humanitarian disaster in Gaza and the disproportionate killings of innocent Palestinians by the Israeli government, and I need the adults around me to take a stand. I'm also here today hurt, angered, and as the organizer of and leader of the walkouts, personally offended by Mr. Baton's recent public statement. We are taught in school that this country is a democracy and that people can speak freely. We should be able to be critical of the Israeli government's actions without being accused of anti-Semitism. We should also be able to exercise our freedom of speech rights without being labeled white supremacists. And lastly, the phrase, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, purely means that from the river to the sea, Palestinians in between will be free, and they're undoubtedly not free and haven't been since the Nakba in 1948. I was also here a few months ago speaking to the school committee. In my last speech, I called on you guys to issue a strong statement supporting a ceasefire in Palestine. As of right now, all I've heard from you guys is Mr. Baton's public statement comparing us high schoolers to white nationalists because we covered our faces with keffiyehs. I've spent the past month going to university encampments such as MIT, Northeastern, Tufts, and Harvard. At the encampments, I've met so many new people, graduate students, professors, and college students. I've learned to debka. This is a traditional Palestinian folk dance. I've learned German guitar songs about Palestinian liberation. I attended the most wholesome Passover Seder surrounded with tents. I even got asked to speak to a class at UMass Boston. Not only have I had a wonderful experience, but I've also had very interesting conversations with members of the Hillel houses at Northeastern. These encampments are the cultural centers we've never really had. This is the kind of community we should strive for in our city. Everyone to be kind, respectful, and curious about cultures, not for adults in power to be silent unless it's to compare their students to white supremacists.
Thank you. Your time is up.
I talk about the genocide unfolding in Palestine at home regularly, but when I go to school, it's as if nothing's happening. How am I expected to focus on literary devices and integrals when all I can think of are the 40,000 people who are dead at the hands of Israeli bombs and U.S. dollars?
I'm afraid your time
How can
is
I
up.
focus when I know that my own representatives want to stifle my voice by changing the attendance policy for walkout, a policy that has been the same for so long, but coincidentally, when we talk about Palestine, it changes, dissuading students from exercising their freedom of speech and social action rights. How can I focus knowing that silence is compliance and your silence as elected officials is deafening?
Your time is up.
Today, I'm
Thank
once
you.
again asking that the school committee issue a strong statement supporting an immediate, permanent, and unconditional ceasefire and end to the Israeli occupation in Gaza and the West Bank. I'm also calling on you to reflect on your silence and lack of support for students in Somerville Public Schools as well as the larger community. Throughout history, we've seen the strength and effectiveness of student uprisings. Remember South Africa? Remember Vietnam? Today and every day, we are here to be that change we so desperately must see. We will fight until there is a ceasefire in Palestine, and we will continue to fight so that from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Thank you.
Next, I have Alan Jalen, Gabby Agbola, and then Jonah Collado. Alan, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm Alan Jalen, and I live on Dane Street. What I want to say is that the slogan, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, is not a threat to me as a Jew or to my cousins who live in Israel. I'm old enough to remember the civil rights movement, whose slogan was freedom. Our songs were freedom songs. Dr. King's famous dream was free at last. Freedom did not mean getting rid of white people. It meant equal rights, equal protection of the law. That shouldn't be a foreign concept in America, where we're supposed to be the land of the free. And that's what free Palestine means. It doesn't mean subjugating or evicting anybody. That's what's on Jamal's jacket and on my T-shirt, which was designed and printed by a Jew in Brooklyn. We don't hate Jews. Of course, there are Palestinians who do want all the Jews out. There are probably more and more of them with every day of bombing and starvation. But that's not a reason to keep Palestinians from speaking out for freedom. There are plenty of Jews in Israel who want all the Arabs out. That doesn't keep other Jews from speaking up for what they believe. A free Palestine from the river to the sea is just the same as a free America from sea to shining sea. I'm for both. Thank you.
Gabby Agbola, Jonah Collado, and then Mahid Halai.
Hello, my name is Gabby Agbola, and I have been a resident of Ward 1 for the past 8 years. I'm a former Cambridge public school teacher and the mother of 3 Black and Arab American children. My oldest will be entering into the Somerville public school system in the fall, and I'm here today to voice my deep concern for the actions and lack of actions I have been quietly observing from our elected committee members over the past 8 months. I have been disturbed by the literal silencing, avoiding, and at times willful ignorance. Most recently, and with much difficulty, I watched the misconstrued and twisted comments given by the school committee member from Ward 7. In all honesty, I was left a bit confused. Is he accusing our students of hate speech? The same students calling for peace and freedom in a historically and quite presently oppressed people? Is he accusing the students of calling for a genocide? Because I'm quite certain these students are actually calling for the end of a genocide. They are protesting the complete and utter turmoil of a people at the hands of a society built upon the destruction of its indigenous population. I'm talking about the destruction of Palestine at the hands of Israel with the unbridled support of our very own tax dollars. And our own elected officials, some, not all, here in progressive Somerville, are unaware that they are standing on the wrong side of history and speaking somehow with conviction that our children should be punished for standing up for justice and peace. This winter, I toured several elementary schools and was proud to see all the Black Lives Matter and LGBTQ+ signs displayed throughout. This is wonderful. Our schools are meant to be a place where children can learn the value of human life, a place where they can learn to care for one another and become global citizens, propagating peace. And I see hundreds of high school students walking out in solidarity with Gaza, demanding an end to this genocide. I hope that our youth will continue to stand up for justice and oppress people everywhere. Let's not mess that up for them by taking to heart the words shared by the Ward 7 school committee member. Thank you for hearing my words today. And in case you didn't already know, there are basically no schools remaining in Gaza.
I have Jonah Collado, Mahid Halei, and then Ivan Abarca. Jonah, the floor is yours.
My name is Jonah Collado. I live on Madison Street. I'm currently a senior at Somerville High School, and I will have graduated by the time the suggested SHS policy changes would be implemented. So I have nothing to gain either way. But these past months have been difficult for many of us. We've witnessed atrocity after atrocity and the senseless killings of innocent people, many of them our age or younger, by the Israeli military. I felt hopeless and voiceless. Towards the end of October, that hopelessness led me into a psychiatric hospital. But the student protests gave us the opportunity to come together, made us stronger, and gave us that hope which we needed so desperately. Because of this, I believe the school should support such actions wholeheartedly. Furthermore, it's impossible not to notice the timing of the suggested change. For years, protest has been an excused absence, and suddenly this changes when students are protesting for the Palestinian cause. Intentional or not, for me and many others, this decision appears to be unjustly targeting Muslims, Arabs, and Palestinians, people who are certainly struggling already, and whom the school should be working to support, not discouraging. To them, this change gets across a clear message. Their voices and their lives are not given the same value and respect as others. I am certain that students will continue to raise their voices for the right thing, regardless of what you decide. You will only display where you stand, for progress alongside the students or against it with Israeli war criminals. The choice is yours.
I have Mahid Halei, Ivan Abarca, and Ilona Yosef.
My name is Majid Halaj. I'm a Palestinian resident of Somerville for the last 6 years. I'm a product of the Nakba, the displacement of Palestinians 76 years ago when Israel was established. For my family who remains in Ramallah in the occupied West Bank, they have to go through daily checkpoints to go to work. Because of my family's displacement, I've only had to deal with the oppressive climate here in Massachusetts. Among my experiences here, history teachers in Lexington High School and Tufts University taught classes stating that there were never Palestinians in Palestine, that it was a land without people, going against my family's history. At my high school graduation, the administration asked those in attendance, including my grandparents, to applaud students going into the Israeli military that had once made them refugees. Over the years, school administration released numerous statements to discourage peaceful protests for Palestine and threatened us that speaking up is anti-Semitic. So when I heard the District 7 Schools Committee member oppose Somerville High School students protesting about Palestine, calling their chants from the river to the sea anti-Semitic and violent, and proposed targeting change in attendance policy for their brave actions, it's a silencing and insensitivity I'm all too familiar with. I ask you here today, have you actually spoken with a Palestinian to ask them about their history and their intention? Have you spoken with a Somerville High School student or the Jewish students protesting to ask them why they're protesting? If our students, who have always been the moral compass of our country, are not allowed to speak out, bring attention to human rights issues, and advocate for a better tomorrow, that is not a world I want to live in. This blanket assumption of students' intentions and safety through their advocacy is shocking, irresponsible, and oppressive. I urge you all to listen to your students and to understand them when they say, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, and that this is a call for human rights, equality, an end to violence, and an end to an oppressive occupation. Thank you.
I have Ivan Abarka, then Ilona Yosefov, and then Layla Skinner. Ivan, the floor is yours.
Hello, my name is Ivan Abarca and I live in Ward 3. I am here today as a parent of a Somerville High School student. My daughter Layla came to your meeting in early February and requested that the high school addresses the genocide in Gaza at school. She delivered a letter to each of you with well over 100 signatures. There has been complete silence from you all since then, until Ward 7 School Committee, Mr. Bidon, linked the students protesting with masks to white supremacists and requested discipline action for chanting from the river to the sea. Really? When my daughter addressed you in all February, she said, and I quote, "Everything happening right now in Gaza is linked to our academic curriculum, such as world history, politics, religion, ethics, etc. And now we find ourselves as a community in a debate about personal ideology? This seems entirely inappropriate and scandalous for the school committee and risks to delegitimize this body. I am also here as a linguist and former academic. I have published articles in international peer-reviewed academic journals, and I taught and did research at MIT for 8 years. The expression from the river to the sea is not anti-Semitic or hate speech. The chant does not have a semantic intrinsic meaning, but does mean many things to many different people. We know that the meaning sparks in the mind of the listeners and is not embedded in the speaker's words. For example, the 1977 election manifesto of the right-wing Israeli Likud party of Prime Minister Netanyahu said, and I quote, "Between the sea and the Jordan, there will only be Israeli sovereignty. For me, this is a clear call for ethnic cleansing of Palestinians, but for others, it could be permission for settlers to take over land." To debate this slogan right now is completely missing the point of what our students are protesting about.
I'm afraid your time is up.
The third reason I'm here is to advocate for the education of Hispanic and Brazilian communities. I would like to ask you all, in particular, Mr. Bitton, if instead of introducing ideology as a policy for academic curriculum, why not propose legitimate suggestions like For example, could you address the ongoing problem of social and racial inequity among the Hispanic and Brazilian students and their peers? Or almost inexistent Hispanic and Brazilian students in AP courses at SHS? Or what about start a second or third language earlier?
Your time is up. Thank you.
Your
time is up.
I'm calling on this committee to stop ignoring the students' cry for adults to step up and guide the students with critical thinking and pedagogical tools to support and address with urgency the traumatic siege for Palestinians and the rest of the world with a non-ideological and punitive approach.
Thank you. Your time is up. I have Ilona Yosefov and then Layla Skinner. Ilona, the floor is yours. Ilona. Sorry.
Hello, my name is Ilona. I'm a Somerville parent. I've been here for 9 years, but I spent most of my life in Israel. I am Jewish, and I'm here to speak against disciplinary measures the school committee is considering for students who are protesting for Palestine. I believe concerns about chants, like from the river to the sea, are disingenuous. People who claim to be harmed by these words say that they could be interpreted as a call to ethnically cleanse the landmass from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea of Jews. What they're willfully ignoring is the fact that the Zionist project has been engaging in the deliberate ethnic cleansing of Palestinians for the last 76 years, starting with 750,000 Palestinians forcibly displaced from their homes in 1948 and continue to this day, with the genocide in Gaza being the most direct and unabashed attempt to kill or expel every last Palestinian from the land. Expressing so much concern about a hypothetical interpretation of a chant and no concern about an actual genocide is mind-boggling. These students aren't anti-Semites, they are anti-fascist. They give me hope. These protests give me hope because if young people are willing to put their bodies on the line for what is right, we might have a future. I was involved with the Emerson encampment. We held a Seder the first night of Passover. There were more Jewish students there than the Zionist counter-protest, and they still call the encampment anti-Semitic. Then you have Proud Boys and other known anti-Semites joining Zionist counter-protesters in beating and assaulting student protesters all over the country. Supporters of Israel worked with white nationalists to break and assault fellow Jews in the UCLA encampment. Why we're not talking about that? So let's uplift our students, our kids, for practicing their civil rights. And please, please fully fund our schools. 6.7% is not enough.
Next, I have Layla Skinner, and then Richard Noyen, and then Maria Perez Cardenas.
Madam Chair, before the next speaker, point of order?
Yes.
All right, I'm saying this as the initiator of public comment policy, the initiator of the protest policy under discussion, and the initiator of the practice by which we tend to be fairly lenient on the time limits. Given the number of speakers we have and the possibility of being seen as favored on one side or another, I'm going to really urge that we be stingy with our time limit, but do it even handily into everyone as much as that may suck. I think it's the only way to get through.
Layla, the floor is, oh, sorry.
I
Before we
apologize,
continue.
just a quick comment. I would encourage people to continue to email. If there's stuff you didn't get to say, please email it to us. We don't not want to hear from you. We desperately want to hear from you, but we're trying to get all the voices tonight, so thank you.
Thank you for that reminder. Layla, the floor is yours.
Hello, my name is Layla Skinner. I live at Newton Street, and I work in our public schools. I'm here to demand you recognize From the River to the Sea as a call for the full rights and freedom of all Palestinians and allow our students and staff to use the phrase without disciplinary action. When I was in high school, I traveled to Nablus in the West Bank to teach English and take Arabic classes. With my Arabic teacher, Aisha, we talk about our lives and weekends. Yet where I was traveling to Jerusalem in the Dead Sea She had never made the short 2-hour journey to either. Jerusalem is home to the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the third holiest site in Islam. It's just over 70 miles from Nablus. However, under the system of Israeli apartheid with endless checkpoints, ID permit systems, and roads that bar Palestinians, Aisha remains segregated to Nablus. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free means that Palestinians, like Aisha, will have full rights and freedoms to travel, to work, to live, from Nablus to Jerusalem, to Ramallah, to Hebron, to Gaza. On my way into Israel to fly home, in security, an Israeli officer separated me from my group as a young 17-year-old, took me into an interrogation room, and questioned me for hours, simply because my name, Layla, is Arabic. As part of my trip, I was required to present to my school. Yet before that, my principal pulled me into her office and threatened disciplinary action if I used the word occupation, apartheid, or checkpoint. I was perplexed. I had been held by the Israeli officers for hours just because my name is Arabic, and yet I had all the privileges of being a young, white, American minor girl, and yet my school, just like this entire school committee, is maintaining silence and threatening punishment for their students for speaking the truth and for speaking out about the injustice and violence committed against Palestinians.
I'm afraid your time is up. I have Richard Najoyan, Maria Cardenas, and then Veronica Cañas. Richard? Are you here?
He's on.
Oh, okay. We can do him on Zoom now, if that. Okay. Go ahead, Richard.
Can you hear me?
Hold on. Oh, yep, we can hear you now.
Hello, I'm Richard Wang. I've lived in the Clarendon Hill projects my entire life. To the Somerville Public School Committee, I ask you to think and picture the future. As a Vietnamese American senior at Somerville High, my push for change will not stop even after I graduate. We've entered a new era where a surge of information is readily available, and with that, change is exponential. For example, these kids, not just from Somerville, but from the 11 other high schools in neighboring cities, joined us on our fight for universities these kids might one day attend to divest. Somerville is a place where countless cultures collide, and in future events, and as time progresses, and as live catastrophes unfold, why should we bar students and discourage them from being involved with change and peace, not just locally, but globally? Allowing students to partake in and allowing students to organize peaceful protests fosters policymakers, journalists, reporters, diplomats, and so much more. Nurturing this urge to help others allows future generations to not make the same mistakes the past keeps continuing. Keeping this policy doesn't break the cycle of suffering, rather it helps in birthing a new cycle, one where advocacy is promoted. There's this rule, something that I had the privilege to learn growing up in Somerville, and it should continue from where I started in Head Start, from the West Somerville Neighborhood School to now Somerville High, and this rule is the golden rule. Treat those the same ways you want to be treated. If students see that some cannot and will not be able to go to school, or see their loved ones or die, or see parents cry over their children, or not even be able to be buried under the land that they were born in, why shouldn't the students of Somerville want to help? It's important to protect the future as much as its legacy, as this is how we continue to see. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.
Next, I have Maria Cardenas, Veronica Cañas, and then Hannah Creasy. Maria, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
My name is Maria Perez, live in Ward 3. I have lived in Somerville for 4 years, and I want my son to grow up here and get educated in Somerville. I have been watching in horror the bombardment against Palestinians. As a mother, it crushes my heart seeing images of mothers holding their bodies of their children, seeing the atrocities and the inability of most of our elected officials to condemn the ongoing genocide in Gaza makes me feel hopeless about the world my son is living in. However, when I see brave and compassionate youth making a stance for peace and speaking up for Palestine liberation, as our high school students have done it, it warms my heart and gives me the courage to be here and to do everything I can so one day my son can do the same and stands for peace in Somerville. I would like to ask the school committee members of Somerville to codify the students' right to protest to the ongoing genocide and uphold the previously existing excuse attendance policy. Thank you.
Next, I have Veronica Cañas, then Hannah Creasy, and then Amy Pollard. Veronica?
Hi, my name is Veronica Cañas, and I live at 62 Simpson Ave in Ward 7. I've lived in Somerville for 8 years, and I chose to live here because of the progressive values of this community. So I'm extremely disappointed that the committee member from Ward 7 has suggested changing the attendance policy to limit the Somerville High School students' right to protest genocide. I was a high school student during the war in Iraq and was punished and kicked out of class for protesting the actions of the U.S. government by refusing to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. This sent me the message that my voice as a student did not matter and that I didn't truly have a right to free speech, even though that same school system had taught me that I do. I don't want these brave students here in Somerville who are exercising their right to protest to be sent the same message, that free speech is only for those who don't challenge the status quo or that they should do nothing in the face of injustice. I also want to remind you that silencing protests of genocide is complicity with genocide. So I ask you to codify the students' right to protest the ongoing genocide in Gaza and uphold the existing excused absence policy. Thank you.
You are Veronica, yes? Yes. Okay, thank you. So next I have Hannah Creasy, Amy Pollard, and then Matthew Kennedy. Hannah, the floor is yours.
My name is Hannah Creasy, and I live in Spring Hill, Somerville. As an academic and researcher, I'm appalled at the truth that all 12 of Gaza's universities have been destroyed, displacing nearly 90,000 students and killing over 350 educators. And it makes me so proud to see the young students of Somerville standing up for justice. I think it's a testament to the education we should be striving to provide them with, that they are standing by their convictions and their inner sense of knowing that they are on the right side of history. These brave young scholars deserve our full support, as we should see moral fortitude and critical thinking skills in the face of backlash as the goalposts of a successful education. When I was taught in school about horrific events of history, teachers often asked us, what would you have done if you were alive then? Now, the students of SPS are answering that question in real time, and they are saying that they will not be silent. This is in stark contrast to the 8 months of harrowing silence from the members of the Somerville School Committee, which was only broken in bad faith by the SC member Biton, who compared students standing against genocide to white nationalists. Now, more than ever, I urge the school committee to speak up for what's right by calling for a ceasefire in Gaza and to protect the students who have been setting a beautiful example of how to do just that. These students' right to protest needs to be codified, and the previously existing excused attendance policy needs to be upheld. Students' right to freedom of speech, especially in regards to the phrase "from the river to the sea," must be allowed without disciplinary action. Finally, I urge the committee to publicly apologize for its harmful rhetoric towards the students. This is your chance to correct the public record, or else you risk historians of the future looking back to see that what you chose to do now was nothing.
I have Amy Pollard, then Matthew Kennedy, then Jimena Hasbach. Amy, the floor is yours.
Hi, my name is Amy Pollard, and I am here today from Ward 7 to express my full support for the student organizers and their right to protest. When I moved to Somerville, I was excited to join a community that calls itself progressive, but actions speak louder than words. It is the actions of this school committee that bring me here today. We are in a critical moment in world history. More than 30,000 Palestinians have been killed by Israel in a genocide funded by US taxpayers. Somerville High School students, unlike the adults on this committee, decided to take action. They bravely organized walkouts and raised awareness, exercising their right to free speech. As a voter and a taxpayer, I am outraged by the school committee's response, including my elected officials' comments comparing these students to white nationalists. These comments are racist, harmful, and wildly disrespectful to the students, to Palestinians, and to people of color who are threatened by actual white nationalism every day. Palestinian freedom does not come at anyone's expense, and to suggest that they must continue living under occupation and apartheid is basically a call for their genocide. The chant "From the river to the sea" is not hate speech. It's a call for freedom. High school students are able to understand these concepts. Why can't the adults on this committee? From one adult to another, instead of vilifying the next generation for speaking up, maybe we should listen. History textbooks are filled with stories, not only of people who are blatantly on the wrong side of history, but also those who are too afraid to stand on the right side. Today, I urge you to learn from your students and stand with them, not against them.
Next, I have Matthew Kennedy, then Jimena Hosbach, and then Shadi Solomon. Matthew, the floor is yours.
Hi, my name is Matthew. I'm an organizer with Somerville for Palestine and a member of the Party for Socialism and Liberation. And right now, I'm disappointed to say I'm a resident of Ward 7, given recent comments by our school committee member, Lyra Breton. Tonight, I speak for hundreds of residents in demanding the school committee condemn the genocide against Palestinians in Gaza, call for a ceasefire, and uphold the excused absence policy, allowing students to protest during the school day. I'm also demanding recognition of the phrase, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free," as a call for the full rights and freedom of all Palestinians, and allow students and staff to use the phrase without disciplinary action. All around the country, young people have made the effort to educate themselves on the history of violent occupation in Palestine. They have the moral clarity and courage to recognize and speak out against genocide when they see it. In Somerville, I've been proud to see students develop their political identity as fierce anti-Zionists, organizing with their classmates and schools in other cities to demand their leaders do everything they can to oppose the slaughter of Palestinians. The school committee should be thankful to have a student body as knowledgeable, dedicated, righteous, and brave as this, but instead, the protests against apartheid and genocide have been ignored at best, and in some cases met with scorn, ignorance, and mischaracterization as anti-Semitic. Over 35,000 people have been killed with our tax dollars. Those remaining in Gaza are suffering from a human-created famine. Tens of thousands have injuries and psychological damage that will follow them for the rest of their lives. They don't even have clean drinking water. None of these issues inspired the school committee to speak out about Palestine, yet the students who spoke out against the atrocity were condemned. Decades from now, when the genocide is recognized as an established, uncontroversial fact of history, do you want to be remembered as somebody who fought against it or as somebody who sided with the perpetrators? Stand up against genocide today while you can still do something about it.
Yes. Next, I have Jimena Hosbach, then Shadi Solomon, and then Evan Shardle. Jimena, the floor is yours. Yep.
My name is Jimena. I live on Highland Avenue. I am an organizer with the Party for Socialism and Liberation, here to support the students and educators who are righteously standing in solidarity with the Palestinian people, as well as to demand that the school committee uphold the excused absence policy. The role that these courageous students are playing in the long history of struggle against war and imperialism is clear, as was the case in the struggle against the Vietnam War and against South African apartheid. I also want to highlight the connection between this and what the young students at Winter Hill are currently demanding, a dignified school building that they deserve, rather than what this city gave them, which is a crumbling school building, a school building infested with rodents and other unacceptable learning conditions. Rather than address the very real and very shocking problems in Somerville schools, especially those facing our students of color, our immigrant students, and our students with disabilities, such as those who attend Winter Hill, this committee has spent its time looking to penalize the brave students, the organizers who are standing against a genocide, and comparing them to white nationalists. We must stand with our students who are doing everything in their power to speak up for their brothers and sisters in Palestine, including through actions like school walkouts and taking up slogans of resistance. You as a school board should make the choice to stand on the right side of history and support our students in every way that counts. Thank you.
Next, I have Shadi Solomon, Evan Shardle, and then Anna Slager. Chadi?
My name is Chadi, and I work for the city. I'd like to draw your attention to how your recent actions could be perceived as racist. Okay, and I'd like to ask you to please reconsider your approach to this current situation. On February 28th, a Palestinian teacher in the Somerville Public Schools was violently threatened by a parent on school property. Superintendent Carmona, you were sent the video of this threat the very next day, February 29th. After watching the video, the superintendent and the school committee could have chosen to speak up against this Palestinian hate crime. After all, it happened on school property with students present and to a Somerville Palestinian teacher. But you chose to remain silent. In April, the same parent threatened sexual assault against your Palestinian teacher's wife. No one in the school committee demanded an investigation. No one reached out to the victims. No one used their platform to condemn the hate crime against your Palestinian teacher. No one suggested that this parent's behavior was akin to racist white nationalists. You chose to remain silent. While you were silent, some of the high school students found their voice and their courage. They walked out protesting a system of apartheid that includes segregated schools in Israel. They walked out protesting ethnic cleansing in the West Bank and genocide in Gaza. Instead of applauding students, the school committee member from Ward 7 broke his silence to smear Somerville students, demonizing them for hiding their faces out of fear that some people would weaponize anti-Semitism to destroy students for speaking out against Israel's genocide. The contrast in your response to both of these two incidents can't be seen, or it's challenging for me to see it as anything other than rooted in racism. With that said, I stress the only path forward for us is together. Please break your silence and talk to us, not against us. Thank you.
Next, I have Evan Shardle, Anna Slager, and then Laura Kolodny. Evan, the floor is yours.
Hi, everybody. Thank you. My name's Evan Drucker-Shardle. I'm a Ward 7 resident. I live at 212 Powderhouse Boulevard. I'm here as political and actions lead for If Not Now Boston, which has more than 700 supporters in Somerville. If Not Now is a movement of American Jews organizing our community to end U.S. support for Israel's apartheid system and to demand equality, justice, and a thriving future for all Palestinians and Israelis. I'm proud to join my student neighbors in calling on the committee to condemn genocide in Gaza. But really, I'm here as an American Jew and someone with deep roots in Israel-Palestine. I'm here because my Palestinian friends have lived their entire lives under an apartheid system. I've been to Israel-Palestine many times. I've stood in solidarity with my friends living under military occupation in the West Bank as their homes face demolition by Israeli military bulldozers supplied by our government. My friends have been attacked by soldiers and settlers simply for driving down a road at the wrong time. I myself have been beaten and tear gassed by Israeli police for the simple act of attending a protest. Long before October 7th, I've been struggling to end our own government's support for Israel's system of apartheid and military occupation over Palestinians. So I was very proud to see a long line of my young neighbors join the rally at Tufts a few weeks ago as we called for liberation for Palestinians between the river and the sea, justice and equality for all people. I'm heartened to see the outpouring of popular resistance to our country's complicity in genocide in Gaza, and I'm livid today because a member of this committee compared these brave students to white nationalists. My proud Judaism means that throughout my life, I've experienced anti-Semitism. I've been assaulted on the street for being visibly Jewish. My synagogue growing up was vandalized, even firebombed by neo-Nazis. The members' remarks are beyond offensive. They're dangerous. We must not allow elected officials to cynically compare young people standing up for justice with violent hate groups. It puts me in danger. I join my neighbors in calling on this committee to stand against genocide and apartheid and with their own constituents, students, and community. Stand with student protesters, uphold the existing excused absence policy, stand on the right side of history, and condemn genocide. It's not hard.
Next, I have Anna Slager, Lauren Kolodny, and then Joshua Williams. Anna, the floor is yours.
Hello, my name is Anna Slager, and I live on Newton Street, and I've lived in Somerville for 6 years. I'm a special education teacher at Capuano Early Elementary School in Somerville, and as an SPS educator, I am appalled by your continued silence in the face of genocide and comparison of students' rights to freedom of speech to white nationalist ideologies. Last week, I attended a professional development training hosted by Somerville Public Schools on standing against Islamophobia and anti-Semitism. In this training, we reaffirmed that holding Israel accountable to international human rights laws does not constitute anti-Semitism, just as accusations of anti-Semitism aimed at protesters calling for a free Palestine from the river to the sea falsely conflates religious bigotry with the Zionist project of occupation, apartheid, and ethnic cleansing. From the river to the sea, Palestinians live under apartheid. Our call is for universal equality and for collective liberation. As I grieve for the assault on Gaza's children and simultaneously witness the joy, brilliance, and bravery of Somerville students every single day, my heart breaks for your purported care for the well-being of students in our city, but blatant disregard for their well-being in another. We demand you condemn the ongoing genocide against Palestinians, codify brave students' rights to protest against genocide, uphold the prior excused absence policy, publicly apologize for intimidation of Somerville High School students and comparison to white nationalists, and finally, call for a ceasefire now.
Next, I have Lauren Kolodny, Joshua Williams, and then Alex Eldioff.
Lauren, the floor is yours.
Good evening. My name is Lauren Kolodny. I live at 51 Pennsylvania Avenue in Ward 1. I am a proud and practicing American Jew as well. I'm here this evening not only to condemn the committee member from Ward 7's comments that are offensive, shameful, and frankly embarrassing against our high school students. I'm here to ask you all to take your support for Palestine a step further and to examine and divest and boycott HP products in our schools and our city buildings. The city of Somerville has spent over $1.7 million on HP products in the last 10 years, including in the schools where you are furnished with HP Chromebooks and printers. Hewlett-Packard Enterprise upholds and furnishes the Israeli apartheid state, providing the ID cards that allow the Israeli government to literally segregate every part of their country and to keep Palestinians out of their rightful homes. In funding this apartheid, the city of Somerville and the city of Somerville schools are sending a very clear message to their students, which is it's okay as long as you are plausibly deniable in any accountability for this. And in the spirit of accountability, I ask not only that committee member Batone apologize to the students who you've offended by likening to white nationalists, but I would ask the entire committee to examine their own role in what they are doing, not just symbolically, but actually, and to examine where you are sending our tax dollars as Somerville residents and what that represents to the students who you claim to educate. Thank you.
Next, I have Joshua Williams, Alex Eldioff, and then Sarah Kalick.
Josh, the floor is yours.
Hello, my name is Josh Williams. I live at 82 Columbus Avenue. I'm an attorney and I'm a Ward 3 committee member. I'm here in support of our students protesting the genocide in Gaza. I believe that one goal of educating our students is to instill a set of moral principles that shape but do not dictate our students' opinions, and in service of that, students should be given wide latitude based upon principles of freedom of speech and expression to develop a morality that not only encapsulates our shared principles, but expands and applies them to changing circumstances. Now, some may say that student protests do not align with our shared principles, but consider that 35,000 Palestinians are now dead. That is 1,500 deaths per 100,000 people, or 10 times more than the highest per capita figures in the US during the height of the COVID pandemic. Now imagine if in your own life, if 10 times the number of your friends and family, loved ones are gone in the blink of an eye, and that's nothing you can do through no fault of your own. This is the violence that our students protest. Or consider that nearly all of the 2.3 million Palestinians living in Gaza are now displaced. Imagine in your community their homes destroyed, living off of humanitarian assistance, unsure of what the future may hold. This is the indignity that our students now protest. Or consider that 80% of schools, 195 heritage sites, 227 mosques, 3 churches have been what the United Nations calls systematically obliterated. Imagine 8 of our 11 schools now leveled. Together with the other figures cited, that is the genocide that our students protest. Now, some may say that the slogan "from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free" is hateful or anti-Semitic, but it cannot be said that the phrase is hateful or anti-Semitic on its face. It can only be said it means different things to different people. And I personally believe that in its best light, it is an aspirational call for freedom, democracy, and peace. It's your duty to understand these issues with the nuance that they deserve, and to protect, promote the growth and dignity of all of our students.
Your time is up.
Do not silence them, celebrate them instead. Thank you very much.
Next, I have Alex Eldioff, then Sarah Kalik, and then Julia Peters. Alex, the floor is yours.
Good evening. My name is Alex Eldaif. I am Egyptian, a member of Somerville for Palestine, and have been a resident of Somerville for 6 years. As a human being, I am ashamed to say that today marks the 226th day of indiscriminate bombing against Palestinians. 226 days of aid being withheld, 226 days of famine, and 226 days of genocide. But we all know that it hasn't only been 226 days. It has been 76 years of illegal occupation, dehumanization, and ethnic cleansing against my Palestinian brothers and sisters. I am testifying tonight in response to the Ward 7 school committee member claiming that from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free is hate speech, while ignoring the active genocide against the people of Palestine. How can it be violent to call for your own dignity to be respected and to label the Palestinian quest for freedom as inherently anti-Semitic? Our fight for Palestinian freedom has nothing to do with religion. Considering the statement hate speech or a call to violence is extremely dangerous, and it only serves to censor voices speaking up for human rights, something this committee should be empowering their students to do. You should be celebrating your students and teachers here in Somerville for standing up and not condemning or disciplining them for fighting for human rights. You should stand with them as they chant "from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free," a chant that is a symbol of hope and, more importantly, a symbol of freedom. And you should support them until each one of you sitting here calls for a permanent ceasefire. Your silence is complicity. Stand on the right side of history. Thank you.
Julia Peters, and then Charles Fitzgibbon. Sarah, the floor is yours.
Thank you. My name is Sarah Kallock. I live on Beacon Street here in Somerville. I am not a student, former or otherwise, and I am not a parent. As someone with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, I likely never will be. I'm here today as a Somerville resident, and I am in awe of the young people who attend school here, who have been brave enough to stand in solidarity with the young people and adults thousands of miles away in Gaza, brave enough in a way I never was when I was their age, to take a stand and make their voices heard, their solidarity felt. Now, I was an educator for nearly a decade, teaching young people in colleges across New England. I know firsthand that acts of political speech are learning. The school committee member from Ward 7 claimed that the demonstrating students were disrupting student learning. I can't disagree more. Nothing but learning is happening here. And who are the teachers? The young people. They are my teachers. And as a former teacher, college professor, that was all I ever wanted, was to be surpassed by my own students. We are. We should be proud of the young people of this city, not eager to discipline them. And as a Somerville resident, I object to the calls to change the excused absence policy, and I join the calls for the committee to apologize to students and cease this intimidation. Thank you.
Next, I have Julia Peters, Charles Fitzgibbon, and then Julia Rand. Julia Peters.
Question. The gentleman who's, I think, the sergeant at arms, he said that we were going to get equal time.
Everyone gets
manipulated. They just put all their names down. We haven't had a chance to share our.
I will be reading every single person's name on this list. I'm not cutting off public comment. I have Julia Peters, then Charles Fitzgibbon, and then Julia Rand. Julia Peters.
Hi, my name is Julia. I live on Gordon Street in Ward 7. I originally grew up in Texas, and I moved to Massachusetts with the hope of living in a more progressive and equitable community. I am also a high school United States history teacher and civics teacher. My primary goal as an educator is to create a space where my students can learn, share their ideas, and feel safe. It is my responsibility to uplift the voices of young people and encourage them to speak out against injustice that they see in the world. It is my equal responsibility to teach students the history of our country and how to participate in civic action. In every chapter of America's history, young people have been the forefront of major social progress and positive change. The right to protest is vital for the continuation of our democracy. Americans have the right to freedom of assembly and expression. Somerville High School students have the right to criticize the U.S. policies that are sending taxpayer dollars to fund the mass killing of a civilian population in Gaza. Somerville High School students have the right to protest the destruction of all universities in Gaza. Somerville High School students have the right to protest the murder of thousands of innocent Palestinian children. I believe in the right of students and staff at Somerville Public Schools to speak freely about the world that we live in and protest the genocide of the Palestinian people. Free Palestine. Thank you.
Next, I have Charles Fitzgibbon, Julia Rand, and then Stephanie, I'm not sure what it says. Charles Fitzgibbon?
Yep, good evening. My name is Charles Fitzgibbon. I live at 58 Gordon Street in Ward 7. I'm a former public school history teacher, and I work at the education nonprofit Facing History on Ourselves. And while I'm not here as a representative of my organization, but instead a resident of the city, I do bring my professional expertise in adolescent civic and moral development. The stance that this school committee has taken with regards to student voice and activism is deeply disturbing. In these polarized times, complexity and historical nuance is flattened into binaries of either or and us and them. This body, if it seeks to maintain its mission of quality education to every young person, must not fall into this way of thinking and being. Anti-Zionism, for example, is not always anti-Semitism. The phrase "from the river to the sea," while often misconstrued to fit one's political agenda, calls for the equal rights and freedom of all peoples and for the lives of Palestinians to be equally valued to the lives of Israelis. Our students are calling for justice amidst an ongoing genocide. They are calling for the protection of all life. They are bringing a critical awareness to the world and their role in it. Our democracy does not depend on us having the same view, but rather it depends on us engaging in dialogue across difference. As educators and those who inform ed policy, we should be seeking every avenue to encourage the civic participation of our students, students capable of moral conviction, capable of courageous civic engagement, and capable of holding historical complexity, not stifling it with intimidation and censorship, inaccurate and frankly dangerous misunderstandings of anti-Semitism, and wild claims linking students to white nationalists. The actions and inactions of this body have acted counter to its mission, have failed our students, and have diminished the power and potential of public education. As a resident of Somerville, I believe this committee should condemn the genocide against Palestinians in Gaza and call for a ceasefire now, codify students' right to protest and uphold the existing excused attendance policy, recognize From the River to the Sea as a call for the full rights and freedom of all Palestinians, and allow students and staff to use that phrase without disciplinary action, and to publicly apologize to intimidation and comparison of Somerville high schoolers to white nationalists. Thank you.
Next, I have Julia Rand, Stephanie, and then Grant Morales. Julia Rand, the floor is yours.
Hi, my name is Julia, and I live on Jake Street.
I don't like public speaking, but I feel compelled to be here and say something after hearing the comments made by some committee members, and specifically those made by Mr. Breton from Ward 7. Simply sending an email would not have been enough this time. I'm Jewish, my entire family is Jewish, and I've always been proud of and loved my Jewish heritage. I've been to Israel, and I've done much work to understand the true history of the conflict between Israel and Palestine, which Mr. Breton seems to be short a few facts for. I know what anti-Semitism looks like because I've experienced it, and I have never been offended or felt targeted when hearing the phrase, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." Calling for the freedom of a group of people who have been oppressed for decades is not anti-Semitic. In fact, the Judaism I was raised in teaches us that everyone, regardless of race or religion, has the right to live freely. Jewish people should understand the importance of that more than most. So to say that students wanting freedom for Palestine is hate speech is ironic at best. Somerville is diverse. It's a strength of this city and one of the many reasons that my husband and I chose to live here. Being on school committee here means that you're acting on behalf of children and parents from all different backgrounds, races, and religions. I'm a white, anti-Zionist Jewish woman, and I felt uncomfortable with the views expressed by Mr. Breton. Can you imagine how unsafe the Palestinian members of our community feel? Someone with such little tolerance and respect for others shouldn't be in a position of power or visibility in this city, and I'm disgusted that so many of you sitting here seem to agree with him. It's not wrong to want to discuss the school's absence policy, but wanting to change that policy in direct response to these protests is blatantly Islamophobic. Mr. Breton is using the school's absence policy as a tactic to silence literal children who are speaking about a genocide that is real and happening, with Israel as the oppressor, not the oppressed. I've been appalled by the shameful behavior of the school committee following several awful incidents that have taken place on school grounds. When an adult yells at students that he hopes they're raped, you say nothing.
Your time is up.
When somebody says something about Gaza, you think that it's time to speak up.
Your time is up.
I hope that you'll learn something today. Free Gaza.
Next, I have Stephanie, Grant Morales, and then Jeffrey Shen.
What's the last name for Stephanie?
So there isn't any listed here. It just says Stephanie or Stefanio, and there's no last name listed.
Good evening. My name is Stephanie, and I live along College Ave. I'm a kindergarten teacher and a resident of Somerville, and I was compelled to come here and speak tonight, not just to support our courageous and wonderful Somerville students, but because every time I'm with my own students, I think of the children of Gaza. I think of not only the more than 15,000 young kids Israel has murdered in 7 months, but of all the rest who are alive and continue to endure such unimaginable terror. There are children like our own suffering in Gaza, and the whole world has been watching helplessly while our shameful leaders were silent and inactive, or worse, there are those who are enabling it. It was our young people, the amazing students, who stood up and took justice into their own hands. These young people have given the world hope again, and for that, we are deeply grateful to each and every one of them. To punish students for doing what our grown leaders should have done would be shameful. These students deserve nothing less than our complete love and support. Last but not least, because I am a teacher, I came to school a few of you on the committee. Semites are not just Jewish people. If you look up the definition, you will read, Semite, a member of any of the peoples who speak or spoke a Semitic language, including, in particular, Arabs and Jews. It is not anti-Semitic to call for a free Palestine because Palestinians are Semites too. Second, many of you are claiming the phrase "from the river to the sea" is violent or hateful. How is this phrase any different from our own national anthem when we sing "From sea to shining sea"?
Your time is up.
Free Palestine.
that I will give everybody who is signed up for public comment their 2 minutes, but while other people are speaking, please be respectful of the other people speaking. I will give everyone who signed up their 2 minutes. Next, I have Grant Morales, Jeffrey Shen, and then Giovanna Calvilla. Grant, the floor is yours. Is Grant still here? I will come back. Next, I have Jeffrey Shen.
Hello, my name is Jeffrey. I live on Monroe Street. I'm also a community organizer with the Party for Socialism and Liberation. For months across the United States, millions of ordinary people have taken to the streets in solidarity with Palestine and to protest our own government's role in carrying out the genocide in Gaza. In Somerville, our community has also mobilized and organized to call out our own elected officials' shameful silence on Palestine. It is incredibly inspiring to see the brave young people at Somerville High School and across the Boston area who continue to protest week after week against the ongoing genocide. I know, and we know, that these young students stand on the right side of history. It is shameful that there are some members of the school committee who are now calling to censor high school students, literal high school students, and ban pro-Palestinian speech, including the phrase, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." It is also unbelievable that someone would equate young students protesting a genocide to literal white supremacists. We have to understand these intimidation and smear tactics as part of a broader attempt by the ruling class in our country to harass, dox, demonize, and repress anyone who stands with Palestine and the Palestinian people. But just like police raids and suspensions and arrests could not stop the righteous movement in college campuses across the country, we are not going to let the threats and intimidation from some school committee member stop the courageous high school students from saying what is right. We demand a public apology for comparing Somerville High School students to white nationalists, a recognition of the phrase, "From the river to the sea," as a call for the full rights and freedom of all Palestinians, and to allow students and staff to use the phrase without disciplinary action, and for the school committee to uphold the right of students to protest an ongoing genocide. Free Palestine.
Next, I have Giovanna Calvilla, Joe Souza, and then Lauren Kolodny. Giovanna Calvilla? Giovanna, are you here? Great.
Hello, my name is Giovanna Calvillo. I live at 1 Watson Street in Ward 7, and I've lived in Somerville for 5 years. I'm a social worker and a therapist. I live with my partner, and she's Palestinian. Her grandfather was forcibly displaced from Jerusalem in 1948 by a Zionist militia. We are now witnessing millions of Palestinians and her family members die and go through a second Nakba. And seeing my community here in Somerville refuse to recognize the genocide and violence that Israel has enacted for the last 75 years makes my partner and I lose trust in our system. And it certainly is making students lose their trust as well. Palestinians have been silenced, killed, and ignored by the world for the past 76 years of ongoing suffering. And now that people are speaking up for Palestine, that gives my partner and I hope. I'm wondering why. Why change the rules now regarding protests? Why didn't this apply to other protests? To restrict protests that advocate for the liberation of Palestinians is anti-Palestinian. Let these students have equal and same rights as the students prior to them had for other movements. Furthermore, it is upsetting to hear that one of the members equated these students to white supremacists. These are children who have been using their voices to speak up about a current genocide and injustices when they notice that the adults who are supposed to serve as an example for them aren't. Meanwhile, there were real threats directed towards these students and school staff who were standing up for Palestine, including rape threats. I'm extremely disappointed that these threats haven't been addressed and hope that you will do so as soon as possible. I heard the students' testimonies here a few months ago during this school meeting about how frustrated they were about the indifference and censorship from their school regarding the current genocide. And now there is deliberation of further silencing them and not supporting them. Students should be lauded, not bullied and criticized for using their voices. Lastly, I just want to reiterate what others have said. From the river to the sea, Palestine will not be free is not anti-Semitic. It solely calls for the freedom of Palestinians.
Your time is up.
Thank you.
Next, I have Joe Souza, and I believe Lauren Kolodny already went, and then Stephanie Mullaney. Joe Souza?
Be nice, guys. Come on. My name's Joe Souza. I'm the parent of a 4th and 3rd grader at East. Many of you in this room on both sides of this know me. And you know that this year has been one of crisis for our family as my wife battles stage 4 cancer. The support we've received from our community has been unreal. The staff and admin team at East had our back. There was special in-school support for our kids, and other parents and families rallied around us. We have felt loved and embraced. That's our city at its best. It's a city of good neighbors. It's therefore deeply painful for me to come here and say what I have to say. You have a full plate tonight, a budget that's been subject of much acrimony, test scores well below state standards, infrastructure in disrepair. We heard our students talk about that, and that was wonderful. The continued fallout of COVID and our kids' learning, all of that is far more important than this circus right here. Councilor Laren Batone spoke for many of our neighbors in condemning From the River to the Sea as hate speech. It's the motto of a fascistic terrorist organization and seen by many, including many who chant it, as an unambiguous call for violence against Jews. Whatever your take, it seems like common sense that high school kids shouldn't be encouraged to use this language. But instead of doing the neighborly thing and agreeing to some sensible boundaries, Somerville for Palestine is tripling down on this. Why? Your actions tell us that you don't truly support peace, that your movement has completely lost the plot. You are reduced to defending a phrase that stands for a vile, vicious, ideological bigotry. Your intent is not at all clear here, but the impact is. It was stupid, inappropriate, and outrageous when the city council rammed through a ceasefire resolution back in January. And now we're seeing the fallout. We're chasing the mayor, we're disrupting business, we're alienating our neighbors, and increasingly we're seeing our children targeted, bullied, and intimidated. There's a lot of shouting.
Your time
I know
is
I'm
up.
doing that. I want to just urge city leaders to do what should have been done before the ceasefire resolution was passed. Find an appropriate venue for this dialogue. People have been saying dialogue.
Okay, your
Let's have
time is
dialogue.
up. Thank
Find
you.
an appropriate venue for dialogue, not here though.
Thank you. Your time is up. I believe Lauren Kolodny already went. So I have Stephanie Mullaney, then Brian Sokol, and then Leah Sokol. Stephanie?
I'm Stephanie.
Oh, okay, thank you. And Lauren Kolodny, you already went, correct, thank you. Okay, I have Brian Sokol, Lisa or Leah Sokol, and then Charlotte Ross. Brian, the floor is yours. And just a reminder to please say your address at the beginning of where you reside.
My name is Brian Sokol, and I've been living in Union Square for 17 years with my wife and 3 children. My oldest graduated from Somerville High School last year. I deeply value the diversity and progressive spirit of the Somerville community and the way we usually support each other. However, after October 7th, when my family displayed a sign in support of our friends and family in Israel after a brutal terrorist attack when 1,200 people were murdered, women were raped, and babies and hundreds of others were taken hostage, we put up this sign. And the sign was stolen 3 times, it was plastered with hate slogans, and we actually received a note on the sign from a self-professed Nazi signed with Hail Hitler. My children were afraid to leave the house. This is not the Somerville we ought to be. Many Jews, maybe not in this room, but many Jews have been saying repeatedly that the phrase "from the river to the sea" is anti-Semitic. Despite idealistic claims to the contrary that we've heard, in the real world, it implies the decimation, displacement, and disenfranchisement of 7 million Jews. For me, this fear is not theoretical. Hamas killed 2 of my close friends in a bus bombing during the second Intifada revolution. These friends were deeply committed to Palestinian statehood. Glorifying this violence is immensely painful. Some argue that the speech is not anti-Semitic, and that just increases the offense. When a group of people expresses that something is harmful, others should listen and try to do better. Allowing such speech in our schools clearly interferes with Jewish students' ability to learn. Who can focus on math knowing their classmates and maybe teachers want to destroy the lives of their friends, family, and community? Palestinians and Jews both have a right to peace and self-determination. There are plenty of ways to honor these aspirations without resorting to hate, and more importantly for this committee, without bullying our children.
Your time is up.
I urge the committee to condemn anti-Semitic sloganeering, including From the River to the Sea, and replace it with real education that honors the nuances and the complexity of the conflict. Thank you.
Your time is up. Next, I have Leah Sokol.
Hi, my name is Leah Sokol. I live at 85 Prospect Street. I'm a Somerville High graduate from the class of 2023, and I have also been working for Somerville Public Schools at their Genziano after school for 3+ years. I take immense pride in being from such a diverse school community that actively celebrates our different backgrounds, for example, in the SHS Multicultural Fair. Being one of only a handful of Jewish students, and maybe the only observant one, at Somerville High School was difficult. I missed days of school for Jewish high holidays in the fall. I could not attend school dances or football games, which were almost always held on Friday nights due to my observance of the Sabbath. And I felt singled out when teachers would say, "Another one?" when I explained that I would be absent for a 4th Jewish holiday in 1 month's time. Navigating this lack of understanding was hard enough. However, my experience in Somerville Public Schools also came with my fair share of anti-Semitism. In middle school, a peer came up to me and told me that he wanted to bomb all of the Jews. In my 2.5 non-COVID years at Somerville High School, there were 3 incidents of swastikas being found in the building: October 2021, February 2022, and April 2023. The reoccurrence of such hate symbols demonstrates the administration's weak response. I do not remember any assemblies or follow-ups to us students after these incidences. One email about these incidences wrote, and I quote, "Any type of hate speech, imagery, or actions have no place in our school or in our community and will not be tolerated." Sadly, I do not see this promise being upheld today. If I was still at SHS, my peers chanting "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free" would make me extremely uncomfortable. For the excused absence policy, is there no limits? Can we take every day as an excused protest? Now, to clarify, I'm not here to say that we should limit high school's free speech. In fact, I believe in the importance of our generation of advocating for human rights. However, I'm here to ask the school committee to reevaluate certain phrases and chants and to, along with U.S. Congress, deem them as hate speech. Thank you.
Next, I have Charlotte Ross, David Lichter, and then Elena Katz. Charlotte, the floor is yours.
Good evening. My name is Charlotte Ross, and I am a current Somerville Public School educator. I have been a teacher for over 17 years. I am here to speak about 3 concerns. 1, schools should be spaces for unbiased education. 2, we should reevaluate the current policy for excused absences. And 3, we need to stop harmful anti-Semitic rhetoric. Point 1, our schools should be spaces of unbiased education, free from political influence or indoctrination, from obviously biased sources. We as teachers have a responsibility to maintain political neutrality in the classroom, ensuring that our personal political beliefs do not influence our teaching or the learning environment. But shockingly, I have 3 examples of bias and politics infiltrating the learning environment. 1, an educator in Somerville shared with me that they have been writing curriculum to fit their own biased views. 2, a Somerville High School classroom door displays political signage. And 3, students are making posters for the protest at school. Point 2, the current district policy allowing excused absences for protests needs to be reevaluated. Consistent attendance is crucial for students' academic success. Excusing students' absence from school to protest is a disruption to the education process and provides an unintended endorsement of the protest itself. Point 3, public schools should not be endorsing political speech, making political statements, or endorsing protests, and especially if that political speech includes slogans that are anti-Semitic. Please note that in April of this year, our own U.S. government adopted a resolution condemning the phrase "from the river to the sea" as anti-Semitic. If you believe the safety of our schools is paramount, please listen to each of these three concerns closely, as many Jewish Somerville Public Schools staff, students, and families, including myself, do not feel safe. Thank you for listening.
Next, I have David Lichter, Elena Katz, and then Ken Brosiner. David, the floor is yours.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is David Lichter. I'm a proud American Jew. I was born in New York City and moved to Somerville 20 years ago. I reside in Ward 3, and I'm a scientist in the biotech industry and father of a second grader at the Kennedy School. I'm here to express my concerns over the hateful rhetoric that's been invading our neighborhood and schools and highlight two recent examples over the past few months at the second grade level. At Kennedy, one of my daughter's classmates yelled out to the class about how Nazis hate all Jews. At West Somerville, her friend was the target of hateful and hurtful anti-Israeli insults during Multicultural Day as she proudly colored an Israeli flag to celebrate her heritage. Tonight we stand to discern between free speech and hate speech. I'm not here to discuss or debate the origins of the chant from the river to the sea. I'm here to acknowledge that it is a rallying cry for Hamas, the terrorists responsible for the bloodiest massacre of Jews since the Holocaust. It has been designated as hate speech by a bipartisan House committee and is often paired with a chant that I'm even more troubled by, to globalize intifada, which is a more direct call for violence against Jews. These are deeply offensive. I would have been horrified if fellow Americans echoed Al-Qaeda after 9/11. The Jewish value of Rahmanis translates to mercy, compassion, and empathy, which our community desperately needs right now. As we ask for understanding regarding hate speech, we extend compassion to all those in this room who are deeply affected by the war. We all hope for an end to the war and wish peace for innocent civilians. The Jewish value of tikkun olam translates to repairing the world. Let's start with our students, schools, and our community by encouraging thoughtful dialogue and education, perhaps even mediated by a trained professional, instead of shouting at each other. Our words and actions matter, and we must treat our neighbors as we'd want to be treated. Permitting hate speech is the antithesis of tikkun olam. It divides our community and causes deep pain. Thank you.
I have Elena Katz, Ken Brosiner, and then Natty Hoffman. Elena, the floor is yours.
Good evening. My name is Alana, and I'm an Israeli-American Jew. I've lived in Somerville for over 10 years now, and I've never experienced this level of normalized hatred towards Jews and Israelis as I have since October 7th. I had been called a baby killer, seen various areas with graffiti that said Free Gaza and Free Palestine, and seen posters of babies and children hostages defaced all right here in this neighborhood. But what is the saddest to me is how many Israelis and Jews have complimented me on the necklaces I wear and also asked me if I wear them all the time, and were shocked when I said yes. Essentially, they no longer feel safe and comfortable wearing anything that identifies them as a Jew or Israeli. I wanted to speak tonight about two things I find especially troubling regarding the schools. It is my understanding that the school committee is being asked to call for a ceasefire here. My belief is that regardless of people's opinions, no school should be making any decisions related to foreign policy. They have no effects on foreign conflicts and only cause bitter divisiveness as well as an unsafe and alienating environment towards the Jewish and Israeli kids. The second thing I wanted to speak about is the chant of From the River to the Sea. While many here may West-plain this chant as a call for Palestinian rights and freedoms, many of us Jews and Israelis know this to be a rallying cry and call to arms by terror organizations like Hamas. When many of us hear this chant, as well as globalize the intifada, it strikes fear within us, as many of us, including myself, have known people directly impacted by the intent behind them. No kid should have to experience an environment where chants like these are used to make them feel alienated and unsafe. If kids disagree on the conflict, teachers should rather be facilitating constructive dialogue and debate off of facts. Let's teach our kids healthy and respectful dialogue that can be maintained even when we disagree.
Your time is up. Thank you. I have Ken Brosiner, Natty Hoffman, and then Daniel Valanin. Ken Brosiner.
My name is Ken Brosiner, and I've lived in Somerville since 1975. I've been active in anti-war and social justice movements since I was in college in the late 1960s. And while I was going to mostly talk about the slogan or chant, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free," I'm just going to mention one point and instead address a few other things. The fact is that the overwhelming majority of American Jews hear that as a threat to Israel's continued existence. That's a fact, okay? So whatever people here may think they're saying and how it's being received, it's just a fact that it's heard as a threat. In all my years, over a half a century of involvement on the American left, I've never experienced, such a pernicious form of groupthink and just plain ideological blindness. The groupthink involves "from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free," and actually that's more dishonest than groupthink. Why? Because not a single person here has spoken out in favor of a two-state solution. Why? Because none of them support it. If you ask them to be really honest, "from the river to the sea" means, if you want to be nice about it, a one-state solution or a binational state. It does not include the continued existence of the State of Israel. Full stop, period. The other thing I want to briefly address, and I know that it will go in one ear and out the other of almost everybody here, but you need to hear it, okay? The word genocide is being so misused that it's mind-boggling. Can you hear?
Let him
Do
finish.
I have the right to speak or not?
Your time is up, I'm afraid.
Oh, no, the other people spoke for 10. I'm going to...
3
no,
seconds.
I'm going to,
Go ahead.
Yes, thank you.
3 seconds to finish.
Okay. I think that Israel, and this may alienate some of my Jewish friends, Israel has committed war crimes in its relatively indiscriminate bombing and the obstacles it's placed into getting humanitarian supplies in.
Your time is now
up. No, I'm going to continue because you let... No, I'm sorry.
Your time is now up.
Why did you let other people go on for 10 minutes? Why? I'm going to continue to talk for 2 minutes. That's all.
No,
I'm sorry. You're not going to shut me up. Now, there are 2.3 million people in Gaza. 35,000, as the media says, have been killed. So 12,000 are Hamas fighters. So
okay, your time is now up.
That means 25,000, not only, but 25,000 civilians have.
Okay, your time is now up. I have cut the mic. Your time is up.
Just call the next name.
I cut the mic. Your time is now up. Your time is now up. I have cut the mic. Please. Your time is now up. I have cut the mic, and the time is now up. Next, I have Natty Hoffman, Daniel Valanin, and then Guy Seaman.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Good evening. I'm a Somerville Ward 7 resident with 2 elementary school kids. My name is Natty. I'm also a proud Israeli American. My kids don't go to the Somerville public schools. My husband and I didn't think it could be a place where they could bring their full Israeli American identity without suffering from intimidation and bullying. People here would have you think there is nothing but righteousness. Unfortunately, that's not the case. Here's one example. Last fall, an Israeli family I know escaped Hamas's terrorist violence there to seek a more peaceful life in Somerville. On his first few days, their 10-year-old boy had his backpack thrown out of his locker with a Palestinian flag put up on it instead. The school told them it was a locker mix-up. I tried to help them, but they ultimately were too fearful to send their kids to school, and they left Somerville within a few weeks of arriving. They came here to find refuge, and they found intimidation. The mom has agreed to send an email to all of you after today. I would give you so many more examples, but there's not enough time. Because of ongoing, unchecked harassment of Jews and Israelis, I know multiple families reconsidering whether this town is truly welcoming. Have we created an atmosphere where Jewish and Israeli kids can simply be bullied and their national identity attacked without any consequence? There are federal rules that all our schools must follow. Title VI violation begins when the child feels bullied enough due to her race, color, or national origin that she cannot be in school. The example I mentioned clearly crossed that line. Tonight, I'm asking you to read the guidance from our own White House. No child, Israeli, Palestinian, Muslim, Jewish, or anyone, should feel unsafe in school. Thank you.
Next, I have Daniel Valanin, Guy Seaman, and then Meredith Elbaum. Daniel, the floor is yours.
I'm Daniel, and I'm from Israel. I host by Shalom Somerville. I'm standing here in front of you as a Nova Music Festival survivor. On the October 7, I came to celebrate life, love, and humanity, because that's what I believe in, peace. On that day, I lost 6 best friends, and I lost 70 additional friends. One of my friends is still held hostage in Gaza, Eden Yerushalmi. Maybe you saw the pictures. But I'm not here to talk about October 7th. I'm here to talk about 2 things, education and values. Today, everyone knows everything about way of technology, but I came to offer you a different approach. I came all the way from Israel to America to speak in front of you to provide face-to-face dialogue. So I have a question. By raise of hand, how many of you been in Israel or Gaza? Exactly my point. Let me give you an example about how my values. My point is that all of you are judging a bigger story without knowing all the details. Let me give you an example how my values were shaped. My grandparents are Holocaust survivors. In the Middle East, you can grow up with a lot of hate, but my grandparents wasn't what they taught me. After what they've been through, they had a choice to hate, to be angry, and to stop having faith in the word, or to reconnect with people, to humanize everyone, and to love without any conditions. This is what I was at the music festival. This is what I believe in, and this is the values that I wish everyone will have. Only then we will have a chance. With that, I urge the school board to include face-to-face interactions with people who can provide students first-hand experiences and knowledge.
Your time is up. I have Guy Seaman, Meredith Elbaum, and then Jamal Halawa. Guy, the floor is yours. What? Guy Seaman. Again, please say your name and your address in Somerville at the beginning of your statement.
Hi, my name is Guy, and I'm with the Shalom Institute, and I'm a bit nervous, I'm sorry. My name is Guy. I was born in Israel and spent the past 16 years in Israel. But my early school years and high school years were in New Jersey.
Excuse me, point of order.
Yeah.
Can you tell me your address, please?
Where have I been?
Everyone is supposed to give their name and their address, so just asking.
Public comment is only for Somerville residents or people who work in Somerville Public Schools.
Yeah, I've been here for a while now.
Do you have an address in Somerville?
170.
I'm sorry, I have to call this out of order. It's by the rules of our committee.
I just want to say that, you know, I came here because
Okay, everyone, please.
I came here with a message that my friend from Gaza that I'm working with.
Public comment is only for residents of Somerville or people who work at the Somerville Public Schools. We have a very clear policy about that.
I understand.
I have addresses on this list that we can go through. I apologize if it doesn't seem that I did, but that is our policy. You have to be a resident of Somerville or an employee of the Somerville Public Schools.
Okay.
So I have Meredith Elbaum, Jamal Halawa, and then Rami Bridge. Again, please list your address at the beginning.
I'm just going to take a moment. Okay, I'm ready. My name is Meredith Elbaum. I live on Prospect Hill. I've lived in Somerville for 20 of the past 23 years. My children are in 3rd and 6th grade at our Gianziano. I deserve...
Time to get restarted.
Okay, okay, please continue.
I spoke 2 weeks ago and am compelled to speak again because of some things that have happened since. Our 3rd grader was walking home with a group of 8th graders last week. He innocently told them that he had been at the We Shall Dance Again event at MIT the night before. The event was remembering those who were murdered on October 7th. No one has said anything about those people tonight except for our last speaker, and those that are still held hostage. One of the 8th graders reacted by yelling, "Israel or Palestine?" The rest of the group yelled, "Palestine!" He left the group upset and walked home quickly. He's worried about his friends in Israel, and he is scared he won't see them at camp this summer. He's also sad because he thinks he's lost his friends here. Wednesday's Heritage Night at our Genziano, our 6th grader said he doesn't want to go. It's because he's concerned that he can't display his heritage proudly. No child in Somerville should feel that way. I believe our students have a right to protest. Absolutely. We encourage them to be part of our democracy, and this includes the right to stand up for things they believe in. This can be a great learning opportunity, and it cannot come at the expense of their own education, nor shall it affect the ability for their classmates to learn. I urge the committee to come up with parameters around student demonstrations that value learning and protect students' rights to education. Legally, the school is responsible for providing a non-hostile environment for all its students and an environment that is conducive to learning, no matter the intent. If the perception is of hostility and interferes with education, then the school may not allow the activity. I urge the committee to focus on guidelines that ensure a non-hostile, non-disruptive environment for learning. I also encourage the committee to engage a consultant to help them develop and facilitate opportunities for dialogue. I have 2 sentences. For dialogue, learning, sharing, and listening, and to collaborate with the Somerville Peace Commission on extending this to the greater community. Our students need to understand Israel and Palestine together.
Thank you.
There
Your time
is
is
no
up.
or. I leave you with salam, shalom, and peace.
Next, I have Jamal Halawa, Rami Bridge, and then Sarah Bloom. Jamal, the floor is yours.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jamal Halawa. I live at 43 Monroe Street. I'm ceding my time to my neighbor, Lorna.
So my name's Lorna Mackenzie Pollock, and I live on Boston Street, and I'm the grandmother of 2 children in the Somerville school system. And I, too, would like to see dialogue and less hatred between the 2 sides. One of the things that I'm extremely upset about is the way in which from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, has been mistranslated and distorted. I've heard people say that, that the last part says in Arabic, Palestine Arabia. That is not the way the chant is used in protests. It is, and I apologize to Arabic speakers because my Arabic is lousy, it is min il nahar lil abahar, or min il nahar Palestine abahar. Palestine will be free. So that unfortunately the controversy about this real non-issue has taken away the focus away from the stopping of the killing of thousands of innocent people in Gaza and the West Bank. I see the chant as a wish for a place where Jews and Palestinians can coexist peacefully with equal rights for all. I do not see it as a call for violence, and certainly not for the killing of Jews. I am unalterably opposed to violence. I have a brother-in-law who I love dearly in Jerusalem, and I would be heartbroken if anything happened to him. Believe me, I do not support Hamas. I was horrified by their brutal attack, and I would love to see them removed from power. I don't happen to think that blowing up women and children is the best way to remove their support. I'm really sorry to hear reports of pro-Israeli Jewish students feeling unsafe. The protests have been peaceful, and I believe there's a difference between feeling unsafe and feeling uncomfortable. I'm sorry to hear of things happening in Somerville to our children, but I do suspect that a lot of their discomfort comes from seeing the violence perpetrated by the government of Israel. I support the Somerville high school students, and I support Jamal Halawi. This wall is very personal for him, and I ask that he be allowed to continue standing up for his beliefs.
Your time is up.
Thank you.
Next, I have Rami Bridge, Sarah Bloom, and then Natasha Naval. Rami, the floor is yours.
My name is Rami Bridge, and I live in Magoon Square. I already explained last meeting why the phrase "from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free" is not inherently anti-Semitic, and why the conflation of anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism collapses the meaning of words. Again, according to the member from Ward 7, I, a Jewish descendant of the first Jews who went back to Palestine in 1882 with a Hebrew name, who gave both his children Hebrew names, attended 13 years of Jewish day school, am anti-Semitic. For me, being called anti-Semitic is laughable, but for others it is terrifying and silencing, which is exactly the intention. Unfortunately, his position is not unique. In school, I was taught to never question Israel, to always stand with Israel, and history was always taught with that mission in mind. So I can understand why some Jewish people feel uncomfortable when people say "from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." They have been taught to fear it. But we cannot let those beliefs, which are products of our own indoctrinated education, force Somerville to adopt that educational model. Our students seek to understand the world around them, and that is our goal in school. I'm going to quote from the Somerville Social Studies Department's mission statement from 2022, quote, "We strive to provide knowledge and skills to students to investigate interests, critically analyze information, and take action for positive change within their communities." Our students are interested in what Israel is doing in Gaza and the West Bank. They are trying to make sense of what they are seeing on social media, and it is our job to help do that. But this history has always been treated as a third rail in America, and so many teachers have told me they don't feel qualified to talk about it, let alone teach it. They need help and support. Instead, the school committee is afraid to make statements, teachers still haven't been given the tools to engage in the material, and administrators are stifling free speech. The message is clear. Yes, pay attention to the world around you, but ignore what you see with your own eyes. Yes, stand up for what you believe, but not like this. Yes, speak out against injustice, but not this injustice, and not with those words. It's not too late for the school committee to publicly recommit to our academic values and make it clear that we are not interested in censoring or punishing students or staff, that we are interested in the next generation having a better understanding of their place in the world than we were given, so that maybe they can build a better world for the next generation than we did. Or you can maintain your silence and inaction, and they will learn about power structures and systems from your silence instead.
Your time is up.
Thank you.
Next, I have Sarah Bloom, then Natasha, I'm not sure how to pronounce this last name, Novel, and then Vivian Manning. Sarah, the floor is yours.
Yeah, hi. I'm Sarah Bloom. I'm a resident of Somerville for almost 2 years. I live on Pittman Street, and I'm a parent of a Somerville student. I am Jewish, Israeli, and French. I'm a public international lawyer, which includes humanitarian law and human rights, with an expertise on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. This war has been declared by Hamas, and its allies on October 7th, with the active participation of civilians, UN members, journalists, teachers, and doctors. On a per capita basis, October 7th was about 15 times the scale of 9/11. About 130 people remain hostages, among them babies and elderly, women and men used as sex slaves. As an Israeli, I was part of various pro-peace grassroots movements. You know, Israel is a vibrant democracy, and legitimate criticism of its government is a national sport Israel excels at. I constantly worked hard to defend my people's values while listening to the narrative of my Palestinian and Israeli of Arab origin counterparts. There are 2 million in Israel on a population of 10 million, some of whom are close friends who checked on me right after a Hamas terrorist, a student, tried to stab me and missed me in the west part of Jerusalem on October 14, 2015. Breaking news. You can be pro-Israeli and pro-Palestinian at the same time. Actually, if you defend human rights, and among them self-determination, you must be. Anti-Semitism in the US and around the world has skyrocketed. Children have been killed just because they are Jewish. In 2012, in Toulouse, France, to, I quote, the terrorists who killed them, avenge children of Palestine. American teachers, we rely on your expertise to help us teach love, peace, respect, tolerance, news reading and fact-checking, and when age appropriate, invite experts to engage in a respectful debate.
Your time is up.
We do not want you we want you to educate, not indoctrinate with political opinions and ideologies.
Your time is up.
I'm just gonna end on 2 little points.
Your time is up.
There is no genocide in Gaza that was stated by the ICJ, the International Court of Justice. Your time is up. Who said that there is no claim for genocide.
Your time is up.
I'm gonna finish here. I'm just gonna say free the hostages.
Your time is up.
Be active listeners, build bridges. Peace upon all of you.
Okay. I have Natasha Newell? No. Thank you. I just haven't heard. And then Vivian Manning, and then Elena Dietz. Natasha, the floor is yours.
Hello, my name is Natasha. I live at 150 Walnut Street in Ward 4. I am a very proud Bostonian, and I believe in equal rights for all peoples. I'm here to express hope and pride for our young students caring about the world enough to make a stand about it. But I'm also appalled that the Somerville schools are calling them white supremacists and anti-Semites for supporting Palestinian rights and calling for an end to Israeli occupation. I had a hard time wrapping my head around calling supporters of Palestine white supremacists when Palestinians are in fact brown ethnic Arabs. And if anything, there are many more Jews of white European descent living in Israel. Of European descent, but I understand that the Jewish ethnicity is an ethnicity.
Please,
neo-Nazis and white supremacists have used the Star of David as a dog whistle because they support the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians, and they also praise Hamas for their terrorist actions. White supremacists are going to be a threat to people of minorities no matter what, and I do not want to, and I don't think it is relevant in this conversation because we have to be united against them. I don't understand why the Somerville Council dragged its feet for months about calling for a ceasefire or addressing the Islamophobia that its residents face, but they immediately called these students anti-Semites. One of my best friends grew up in Long Island in the aftermath of 9/11, and they're not even Arab, they're Bengali, and they've faced so much racism from their own school in the face of this. So if we're gonna defend one set of people, why not defend all of them? At the same time, I'm heartbroken to hear all the examples that I've heard over the last few months and just now of harassment towards Jewish residents here. This extends to Arabs and Muslims alike. This is an ugly conflict that we cannot run away from, but must face head on and talk about so that we don't rip our own communities apart. I was fortunate enough to go to school in Boston where critical thought was celebrated. And I don't want to turn away from this ugly history, and we need
Your
to talk
time is
about
up.
everything happening.
I have Vivian Manning, then Elena Dietz, and then Cameron Dubé. Vivian, the floor is yours.
Hello, my name is Vivian, and I live at 39 Gilman Street in Somerville, and I'm an educator working in Boston Public Schools. As an educator and a human being, I am horrified that students could be penalized for putting their education to use and advocating for the Palestinian cause. Students deserve the right to engage in protest, to demand for a better world, and the attendance policy should be upheld to honor their right to do so. Additionally, while the Somerville School Board has yet to condemn the genocide or call for a ceasefire, the Israeli occupation forces have destroyed every single higher education institution in Gaza. Palestinian children deserve to attend school and live in peace, as the chant "From the river to the sea" affirms. It is very revealing how threatening some find the concept of Palestinians having equal rights and living free from violence. Students and staff should be allowed to advocate for Palestinian rights and liberation. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, and ceasefire now. Thank you.
I have Elena Dietz, Cameron Dubé, and then Courtney Koslow. Elena?
Hello, my name is Elena Dietz. I'm a college and career readiness counselor partner at Somerville High School. My first time speaking at the Somerville School Board meeting was 2 weeks ago when I raised concerns about one of the counselor's statements against students' right to free speech and protest. And originally I signed up to speak today to reiterate these statements. But honestly, as I thought about what I wanted to say to y'all, what I wanted to say to y'all, I realized that I'd really rather address the students, many of whom who I've worked with and gotten to know over the past year, as this is my first year as a counselor. So I just want to say to all of the students that have come and spoken today that I'm really proud of y'all.
Yes.
It's been an honor to get to meet all of you and know you.
Yes.
And I need y'all to know that this is inspirational, and I'm just so proud of you. I also want to say, as a college and career counselor, that this is what college and career readiness looks like. Students participating in their local government and school board, protesting injustice and advocating for their peers and themselves. That is what college and career readiness is. That is what you all should be advocating for. And all of the adults in this room should be just as proud of these students as I am. Lastly, in terms of the staff who have not shown support for a permanent ceasefire and a free Palestine, including teachers and counselors, school administration, and every single school board member here, shame on you, and free Palestine.
Next, I have Cameron Dubé, Courtney Koslow, and then Madeline Birnbaum. Cameron, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Cameron Dubé. I live at 97R Franklin Street. I have kids at Capuano and Winter Hill. I am making a public comment to raise some concerns I have with gaps in the process that the community schools after-school program uses to assign children to slots. The first issue is the notification timing. Brown was alerted to which students got after-school slots on the 6th of May. Winter Hill and Capuano did not find out until the 9th of May. This creates inequity. The first move advantage goes to the parents who know whether or not they have a slot in the community schools program. That gives them an advantage in the competition for private after-school care if they don't get a slot. This also sort of exacerbates the traditional inequality distribution of resources east to west across town. The second issue is the transparency around the methods and factors used to determine which students get slots. The information provided in staff conversations and Facebook, there wasn't any sort of official communication as to the method used. That's at odds with the stated goals of the district to build trust in the community. Transparency is best practice in these methods precisely to build trust. Cambridge Schools provides an excellent example of how to do this with their how the kindergarten lottery works, a detailed guide for families, which they publish every year. That document is an excellent guide for how to do this. A minor issue, the surveys seem to delay response quite a bit. I would encourage next year the applications to include all necessary information necessary to place students. I'm sure you guys are working on that one. And finally, I would like to sort of encourage, remind everyone that, after school is a vital resource. Myself and a lot of parents across town rely heavily on it. So I definitely, I would encourage a mindset change. Instead of distributing a limited number of slots, think about how you can expand the number of slots to meet the need, which just increases year over year. Now that they have high resolution income information, you might want to consider needs-based pricing.
I'm afraid your time's up. Thank you. I have Courtney Koslow, then Madeline Birnbaum, and then Chris Mullen. Courtney, the floor is yours.
Hi, my name is Courtney Koslow. I am a Ward 5 resident and Winter Hill parent. I came here today to see the wonderful Winter Hill Civics presentation and to speak on the resolution you have on the agenda today for green and healthy schools, which I hope you will pass. I did have remarks prepared for that, but I will be pivoting tonight because as a Jewish Somerville resident, I cannot not say something, and it felt like the more pertinent thing to do now. What I noted the most here not coming because of this is how polarized this conversation is. And I don't understand why, because I actually think we all feel fairly similar about this topic. I want this war to end. I want the killings to stop. It is heartbreaking. But as somebody who's Jewish history for the last 5,700 years of our existence pushed us from country to country, from Northern Africa to the Middle East to Spain and England. Everywhere we went, we were killed, persecuted, made to have the worst and only jobs that nobody else would do. And when the Holocaust killed 6 million people, we had nowhere to go. And Israel was the solution. It's not the solution, though, and we know that. It's not working, but we're talking like a two-party system right here that is all or nothing. We can't be that. We need to be a two-party system. I feel scared. I don't want to wear a pin that my Jewish friend gave me because I don't want to be persecuted here because I feel all of this, but I can't be here saying that this to the river, the sea. I feel it feels anti-Semitic to me, so nobody could say it's not, because that's how it feels to me. We change our language all the time in this country when people feel persecuted. Why is it different? Why is it allowed that this could go on? Change the language. Let's have protests. I'm all for it, but let's have mediation. Let's have dialogue. That's what we do here. We talk about things. So I want this to be the same.
Your time is up. I have Madeline Birnbaum, Chris Mullen, and then Ray Woodcock. Madeline, the floor is yours.
Hello, I'm going to make this very quick. My name is Madeline. I live on Madison Street, and I moved to Somerville this past September. I'm an archivist and a graduate student at Simmons University. I feel fortunate and humbled to be able to attend school and study the preservation of history while every university in Gaza has been destroyed, as well as the Central Archives of Gaza City, in addition to the more than 30,000 precious lives lost. I'm grateful to the students of Somerville High who are calling attention to this genocide, and I am deeply upset that a member of the school board would compare peaceful protesters to white nationalists. I join others in asking that the school board apologize for these inflammatory comments to protect students' rights to peacefully protest as stated in their own existing excused absence policy, and to recognize and condemn the ongoing genocide in Gaza. Thank you.
Next, I have Chris Mullen, Ray Woodcock, and then Corey Donahue. Chris, the floor is yours.
My name is Chris Mullen. I live on 35B Clyde Street. Several years ago, Princeton University professor Martin Gylens and Northwestern University professor Benjamin I. Page looked at nearly 2,000 public opinion surveys and then compared them to the policies that the U.S. government had actually passed. Disturbingly enough, they found that the preferences of the average American appear to have only a minuscule, near zero, statistically non-significant impact upon public policy, end quote. It's understandable then that in the wake of Israel's ongoing campaign of ethnic cleansing and genocide against the Palestinian people, as well as the deafening silence or outright complicity of the leadership of countless national, state, and local governments, corporations, labor organizations, etc., that young people and students would decide to take matters into their own hands and turn to direct action such as staging walkouts and participating in marches and protests. I've only lived in Somerville for a little under 2 years, but I'm already incredibly proud to be a resident of a town whose young students are willing to not only take part in demonstrations, but to lead students from schools from numerous towns in a statewide school walkout. It speaks not only to the proactivity of the students, but to the quality of our city's educational system. On that note, it's infuriating to know that a school council committee member would not only compare student activists to white supremacists and refer to the slogan "From the River to the Sea" as anti-Semitic hate speech, but would also call for disciplinary action for students who participated in said walkouts and demonstrations. This committee member's statement is not only disgusting and anti-democratic, it is also nonsensical. If public opinion has no effect on policy, then how else is change supposed to be enacted? Did student activists make supporting the Vietnam War politically untenable by writing a sternly written letter asking them to only use Agent Orange every other day? Did they help overturn South Africa's apartheid policies by politely asking if black South Africans could have a few basic rights as a treat? Let the students participate in the walkouts and slogans calling for freedom without worrying about retaliatory action. Thank you.
Next, I have Ray Woodcock, Corey Donahue, and then Tamid Rahman. Ray?
Hi, my name is Ray Woodcock, and I'm a 6th grade teacher at the East Somerville Community School. Experts from the United Nations, as well as from human rights and peace advocacy groups, such as the Human Rights Campaign, Amnesty International, and Jewish Voices for Peace, have already defined Israeli government actions as meeting the criteria for apartheid and genocide. It is not hate speech to critique the Israeli government and how it treats the Palestinian people, or to call for decolonization of the region. Please do not unfairly accuse our students of hate speech or compare them to white nationalists when what they're actually advocating for is peace, and doing so peacefully. Somerville leadership, including the school committee, silence for the past 7 months regarding this crisis and how it affects so many in our community, has spoken volumes. I, for one, am not surprised the kids have chosen to stand up and advocate for what they believe is moral and just. Historically speaking, it's almost always young people who are brave enough to force social change. I would agree that protests are disruptive, but that is because protests are designed to disrupt the status quo. That is their whole purpose, to be disruptive enough to force social change. Back in 1963, when MLK was struggling to make gains in taking down segregation, it was the 1,000+ black children who volunteered to walk out of school and go to jail in Birmingham, Alabama. It was undeniably disruptive, but also pivotal in taking down segregation laws. Our children's freedom of speech and freedom to protest are the backbone of our democracy. Please uphold their freedom to continue doing so. Thank you.
Next, I have Corey Donahue and then Tamid Rahman. Corey, the floor is yours.
Hello, my name is Corey Donahue. I live at 66 Line Street in Ward 2. And while I believe strongly in that the school committee should uphold students' right to protest genocide, I'm actually here to talk about a different issue. I'm here to talk about a resolution before you tonight to get the city on a path to healthier school buildings and a better future for our children. Schools are Somerville's largest public consumers of energy. According to the city, over half of municipal carbon pollution comes from school buildings. While we've seen the immediate consequences of deferred maintenance and neglect on the quality of school buildings, like in the Winter Hill School, we need to consider the long-term consequences as well on our environments, on the learning conditions for students, and on our budget. In order to improve conditions for our school buildings, Somerville needs to commit to high environmental standards for any new building or buildings, and produce a clear timeline and binding commitment for comprehensive retrofits of all schools to be implemented within the next decade. Transitioning schools away from expensive, polluting fossil fuels will have a major positive impact on our climate goals, student health, and the city's operating budget. Improvements to our school buildings will vastly improve our environment, including our global environment, that will greatly benefit from reduced carbon pollution, and our schools will be embodying our commitment to the future for our children's lives. Our fiscal environment will improve with the savings from reduced energy costs, savings that could go to additional programming for students or better wages for our school staff. And children's learning environments can improve by improved heating and cooling controls in buildings and improved air conditions. Students spend so much of their childhood inside school buildings, and educational outcomes have been proven to dramatically increase in buildings due to improved student health from healthy ventilation and indoor air quality. The resolution before you tonight asks the city to work with SPS to assess its school buildings and come up with a 10-year plan for improvement. I strongly encourage you to pass this resolution, to work with the city to improve our schools, and to continue to hold the city accountable to its commitments to our children. Thank you.
Next and final, I have Hamid Rahman.
Peace and solidarity. My name is Tamid. I live in 251 Highland Ave, and I'm an organizer with the Party for Socialism and Liberation. I've lived in the area since 4th grade. My second mother actually lives right on Hall Street. My roots to our community are deep, and that's why I care so much about it. It's also why I find it disgusting that students and staff can face disciplinary action for standing against genocide. Comparing our brave students to white nationalists is not only reprehensible, but entirely misguided. We must call it out for what it is, a deliberate plot to silence our student organizers through intimidation and bullying. But as we saw today, our students are brave. Even in the face of repression, even when someone is screaming into their ears with a megaphone, which happened not just a few hours ago, our students do not back down. So I take my cue from them. I stand with the brave Somerville High School students, with my comrades, and echo these demands to the Somerville School Committee. Codify the brave students' right to protest this genocide and uphold the previously existing excused attendance policy. Recognize that from the river to the sea is not a swastika, is not a call for violence against Jews in ideology or in practice, but instead is a call for the freedom of Palestinians. Saying otherwise is a means to silence Palestinian voices. Publicly apologize for intimidation and comparison to Somerville high schoolers to white nationalists. Condemn the Palestinian genocide and call for an immediate ceasefire. Those are the demands. Free Palestine.
Concludes public comment. Thank you all for being here this evening. Oh, there's one more. Oh, I'm sorry, there's one more public comment on Zoom. Molly Frost-Wiley, the floor is yours.
She's for virtual.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. My name is Molly Frost-Wiley. I've lived in Somerville for almost 15 years. I live on Concord Ave. First, I just want to start by saying that we're arguing about a phrase that can't seem to be agreed on internationally, while our local community is being actively targeted with threats against their person, and it seems we've really lost our way. We aren't going to get to choose as Somerville, and certainly not as a Somerville school system, what that phrase means to and for anyone, but I think we all know what a mass slow massacre looks like when we see it. I'm so proud of our high school students for speaking up and taking action where they can and doing what is right and good. Hearing the representative from Ward 7 accuse these students who are rallying for peace of hate speech and anti-Semitism is irresponsible at best and wildly dangerous at worst. Where these students heard silence, they responded with joyful noise and activism. How could everyone sit there when they, literal children, were compared to white nationalists? White supremacy is a very real threat to peace and lives, and we all know that that is not what was at play during these high school students' protests. I am not there in person right now because I have COVID. So sure, masks are used to obscure faces, but they are also used to keep people safe. And safety is what this is really about. And there is a real difference between safety and comfort. I come from a family that includes Holocaust survivors, and the dark irony that a call for the end of a genocide and the liberation of a people would be weaponized as anti-Semitic is unimaginable, and yet here we are. Thankfully, most of us no longer look to our government, our local or state or national, to be a moral compass, because imagine where our movement would be if we did. I ask you today to apologize for the remarks made on the record by Ward 7's representative, that the absentee policy remain unchanged, that you call for a ceasefire now, and that you all think critically about your roles in the committee, about the influence and power that you have, and how you all choose to exercise it. Thank you.
That now concludes public comment. Thank you all for being here this evening and for your heartfelt statements. And we now have some more business to conduct. Superintendent. I think just continue.
Okay, we're going to start from the beginning. So I know as people are exiting, I will continue with the...
Madam Chair, should we take a 3-minute recess? Thank you.
Continue. We're going to do this as fast as we can. Speed round. Speed round. All right, Dr. Carmona.
Okay, thank you. Thank you through the chair. I just wanted to remind everyone we have 4 weeks left of the school. And with that in mind, we have a lot of end-of-year concerts, ceremonies, and graduations that are fast approaching. Please make sure that you check our website to identify what's in our calendar, and then you can participate in these end-of-the-year activities. I also want to highlight a couple of things. We have seniors at Somerville High School will attend our unique long-standing class day on May 31st. Somerville High School class of 24, we have a graduation ceremony on June 3rd, and full circle graduation is on June 5th. We also have a scale graduation on June 12th. A few shout-outs that I, myself and Dr. David Boston will be sharing. The first one is Dr. Lisa McKinnick has been named Teacher of the Year by the American Association of Teachers of Spanish and Portuguese, AATSP. So that's well-deserved. Congratulations. So the AATSP writes that they were particularly impressed by your service to the Communication Review Panel for the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education World Language Frameworks, your commitment to equitable access to all students, your administrative work in the areas of student certification and assessment, and your support of the less commonly taught languages, especially Portuguese. Also noteworthy is your teaching of Portuguese to Spanish speakers, and the growth mindset that drives all of your classroom work. So congratulations, Dr. McKinnick.
Thank you, through the
Dr.
chair.
Boston.
I did want to just do a very brief highlight of a awesome program, Girls Who Code, in grades 5 through 8. This is the first year of Girls Who Code Club in middle grades, and it's just wrapping up. Students supported each other with over 10 weeks of coding training. I would bring my son down there and see the robots, and he loved it. The students of any gender or identity are welcome. And at the students' presentation, there were robots that poured cereal and milk, they performed break dances, they wrote on whiteboards and more. It was really, really amazing to see. So thanks to the high school computer science and robotics teacher, Miss Peters, who does an amazing amount of things, and so thank you for her leadership here. And thank you for the student leaders on the robotics team, Mahu, Bevrup, and Allison, for your hard work on this project. And we really look forward to seeing next year's projects.
And I also, a big shout out for our Kennedy School celebration. They had an event called the Makers Space event. Congratulations to the Kennedy School for their successful Literacy Maker Night on Thursday, April 25th. We have to also congratulate teacher Mrs. Scrima and the family liaison Francesca Brookman. They both brought back this event into Somerville for the first time since December of 2019. So thank you to their efforts to bring real event activities into our community. And Jess, you have the summer programs?
Yes, through the chair. And finally, we're just to share a little bit about summer programs. At the last month's Ed Programs meeting, we talked extensively about summer programs, but we do want to just remind everyone that we are offering a robust menu of free, high-quality summer programs for students of all ages. There are 4 programs that still have open slots. Numerous programs, some still have open slots. And so, for example, rising 6th and 9th graders can enjoy a week of robotics taught by high school students and staff. Rising 9th graders who are going to SPS High School this summer should spend a week in our Summer Success 9th grade orientation program. We also have a comprehensive list of academic support programs open for referral. For example, our students who are learning English, students who need to make up credits, and a lot of joyful math supports found in the Calculus Project. And you can find all of these programs and the ones that have open slots on our website.
And the last part of my report is that we had the members of the out-of-school time here earlier on, Mrs. Parabello, who is the director of the program. They left because we didn't know the timing of the community comments, so we had to basically delay that. So
that will be tabled for our next meeting, correct?
that is correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
That concludes your report?
That concludes my report.
All right, we will do a lightning round here. I have 2 reports of subcommittees. I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Green, seconded by Mr. Bitone. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to unfinished business. Is there anything to update us on the MSBA?
Sorry.
Oh, yes.
Can we approve the April bill rolls?
Yes, thank you.
I move to approve the April bill rolls.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Great, approved. Thank you.
Great. Through the chair, we a quick MSBA update. We are currently working on our educational profile questionnaire, which must be completed by June 4th. And the EPQ, short for Educational Profile Questionnaire, includes the district's current and proposed educational program and helps inform the MSBA's understanding of our current school facilities and how the district envisions the school facilities as a result of our potential building project in partnership with the MSBA. So that is about to be completed, and as soon as that is done, it will be shared with the committee.
Mr. Green?
That, if I remember correctly from the high school, that report has to be approved by us, right? As part of the process.
I don't think there is an approval process on that one. I think it's...
Is this the education plan?
The educational
Could you confirm that? Because I know we did vote on approving it for the high school. I don't know if we had to or not, but I know we did.
Ms. Barish?
I think Mr. Green is talking about the educational program, but Dr. Cremona is talking about the educational profile questionnaire. I don't know if those are the same thing.
Thank you.
Okay.
But I look forward to seeing it when it's done. Thank you.
Great. Are there any further questions? Mr. Green?
Can we get an update from the city for our next meeting about the status of this proposed advisory committee and a timeline for that once it's established and meets?
Yes, and also to that point, just so you know, there is in your packet answers. The city gave me answers to the questions that we compiled at our last meeting, and that is in your packet.
I didn't notice that. Thank you.
Ms. Patone?
It's a quick question, and I apologize I didn't read it all as I'm eating dinner.
Okay.
To you, does the school committee appoint somebody to that committee? And or do we have a say on any of the other community members that are part of that?
I do not think that we do, but yes, there will be somebody from the school committee on it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Anything more on the MSBA?
No, that's it.
Okay. That brings us to a first reading for some policies to be removed. Ms. Parrish, want to give us a quick update?
Yes, sure. I'm just looking at the agenda because that was disappeared from my.
They look like COVID policies.
Yes, just a second. I can open the folder and tell you what they're. Basically, they're all policies that were enacted directly related to COVID. Thank you. EBCE, creation of a general interim policy on COVID-related issues, essentially states at the end that it will expire when the state of emergency has been undone or expired. Emergency one-year leave of absence and school placement hold policy is no longer relevant. The Somerville Public School COVID-19 testing policy is no longer relevant, and the seasonal flu vaccine requirement policy is no longer relevant. Rules voted those or voted the recommendation to remove them from the policy manual out of rules. So that's our recommendation. And then the other policy is file BGC, policy revision and review, and I would invite my colleague, Mr. Batone, to discuss that as he was the one who proposed it. If you'd like. If you don't, I'm happy to do it, but I...
Thank you, Ms. Parrish. Through the chair, if I may. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on this. I did propose, and the Rules Management Subcommittee is advancing revisions, proposed revisions to the policy revision and review policy, because, as you all know, many of our policies are woefully out of date. And I think many employees, many parents sort of haven't had clear guidance about which policies are in, which policies are out. And I took an effort to investigate policies of neighboring districts and districts across the Commonwealth to find those that might make sense for us to incorporate. So actually our neighbors in Arlington have for many years had a policy that I sort of styled the revisions on, and we discussed and molded in committee to have a regular review of each rule, such that after a 5-year period, if a rule has gone stale, it comes up for review. And that is the revision that's in the folder. So,
Mr. Green?
Thank you.
So this is a policy, obviously I agree with in spirit, but in practice, I would ask, do we know how other districts actually execute this policy? Because those of us who've tried to do similar things in the past know that policy reviews are incredibly time-consuming for when most policies only need to change when the law changes. So I would love to, before our next meeting, to have some knowledge of how either other districts actually execute the policy, or how we would propose to find the bandwidth and staff time that we propose do it ourselves.
Mr. Bouton?
Thank you, Chair. Through you, I can speak to that insofar as I've spoken to the school committee member who oversees that subcommittee in Arlington to ask him exactly that question about demands, especially on our staff. And to his reading. Most of the reviews are perfunctory and quick. You check off, yes, we reviewed this, and you move on to the next one. It's not perhaps as onerous as it might seem, though when we do change things like aldermen to councilors that may trigger significant updates across many policies, but I think once the input that I received from the committee member, or the member from Arlington, was that it actually was surprisingly manageable. So take that for what it's worth, but I welcome input from the superintendent and others on the committee.
Dr. Phillips?
Through you, Chair, it's interesting to hear Member Bitone say that, because in my experience on rules in the past year, it felt like the committee was unable to do any of its own policy making because all we were doing was making updates based on the policies that MASC was churning out as updated. So that's my experience. It's not like Arlington's. I'm not sure where the difference lies, but I do think Mr. Green's question is a good one before we get to the second reading, is exactly like, what are we committing ourselves to when we say that?
Ms. Bitone?
Thank you, through you, Chair. I think these are really great points, but the other question is, what's the alternative? We just have policies that are irrelevant and don't support our values. I think that at some point we've got to decide, are we going to spend a little more time on this than we do right now? And I'm not saying we should or shouldn't, but this is something that I put forward as a question to the committee, that, you know, if we can't seem to execute this in the so many hours that we have per year, which is not a lot of hours, right? One meeting per month over 10 months, we're going to have to do some soul searching and decide how we want to either someone spend some time prioritizing it, or, you know, allocate more time to this work. Because I'm not against shorter meetings, but we used to have this rules, it was not an hour. For years and years, it was like an hour and a half. So we as a committee have to decide how we want to take on this responsibility and how can we manage this as efficiently as possible.
Councilor Ewan-Campen?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just say there's a sort of parallel conversation on the City Council as part of our charter review process. One of the recommendations, this is not passed yet, but is to do a sort of comparable thing for our ordinances, which are this motley assortment of 100-year-old laws and laws that were passed last year. I was actually the skeptical one on the council there, that was a good use of our time. And basically the answer from the consultants that worked with us on this was, you farm this out. You know, you hire people that do this, and then they come to you with, these are the things that are just 50 years out of date. They're never enforced. They're never paid attention to. These are the things where you need to make policy decisions on. And it's like a big bite at the apple all at once with an outside consultant, not something that like the city council would sit around doing, for what it's worth.
Green, then Ms. Barish, and then Dr. Carmona.
Thank you. Actually, President Ewan-Campen hit on one of the things I was going to say, which is that, you know, the obvious proposal would be that we hire a consultant. That said, we could argue that that is one of the things we pay MASC and our lawyers for. And when they see that things are out of date, they routinely give us suggestions and other things. So the question becomes, are we passing a policy that is just adding a perfunctory checklist to things that don't need to be updated so we can say we looked at it when we're already paying two different services to help us keep our policies in line with the law and the values? Something to think about. And if we do this, I would ask, and if we continue with this next meeting, I will probably amend it to say that we will budget funds every 5 years for a consultant to help us with this.
Dr. Carmona, and then Ms. Barish.
Yeah, so I think that the answer in terms of consulting with MASC, I think, is part of the work that they do. They also have a field rep that actually can set up a schedule within our normal routines and then just set it up every year to do not only a review but a cleanup of all the things that have to happen. And I think that that's part and parcel of the work that they do. So I know that my coach sent an email to someone in this group about basically establishing that relationship, or she was the one who was interested in helping set that up. So it is out there. There are field reps. It works as part of the contractual services, and I don't think it's that costly. So I think we should, you know, there are a lot of questions in terms of updating policies that seems to me that is a matter of a system, and so I think that there are some best practices that we can copy that are out there.
Ms. Parrish?
Yeah, just for some context, a couple of summers ago, there was a person who was working, maybe it was I don't think they were an intern, maybe they were a fellow, they were working in the superintendent's office, and they were, in theory, working on this, but nothing came of it. So it isn't that it's been ignored for the past 5 years or so, but I think work was begun, but for whatever reason, it didn't come to fruition. And it has been very challenging, as Dr. Phillips noted, to just keep up with the MASC changes. Some of them are so comprehensive and so weedy, particularly some of the finance things as they relate to the city charter, that it's not something that I can personally do, and I don't think any of us can. And between the demands that it would be on district staff time and then demands on city staff time, which we don't really have any control over, it's very hard to make progress sometimes. So I invite input from my colleagues about how we might better collaborate with the city side as well on some of, and I don't mean to like point a finger at the city. I just think it's hard to coordinate all the parts in some of the policy revisions that we need to do, not in all cases, of course.
Mr. Bitone and then Ms. Bitone.
Thank you, Chair, through you. I also want to point out that the number 5 in the proposed policy revision is somewhat arbitrary. Right now, we have no number, and some districts have, shockingly, something like 3, and we could choose a different number. Even 10 would be an improvement on our current practice, which I think is, I've seen a number of policies in our handbook that date back to 2006, 2008. I think it's time to just say we reviewed them, they're fine, but I encourage us to think about how we pick a number and how that might affect our workload, if that's a concern.
Okay, Ms. Bitone?
Thank you. I just wanted to make, through you, just 2 quick points. One, there was, I think, a fellow, and it was oriented around an equity lens. That was the original agenda, was to look at our policies. I don't know how the pandemic played in this, and that might have been part of how the House of Cards fell on that work, is my assumption, but I could be wrong. I also wanted to flag something else. Oh, the other thing is that at some point in time, the committee, the decision was made that the handbooks would also all go through the Rules Committee, which I don't think is necessarily sustainable, but it's something that we probably should have in a conversation, because we are still not in the habit of holding on our responsibility for reviewing all the handbooks, and we need to come up with some way to do that. And we are looking at the high school one, which is great, but clearly the high school team did all the heavy lifting on that. So anyway, I just wanted to flag that for future reference.
Okay. We will discuss this again at our next meeting. With that, we have 2 resolutions. These are also both for first readings. So we'll just do a very quick summary since it's very late. Mr. Bitone, I know you introduced both of these. Do you want to just do a quick?
Thank you, Chair, through you. And I will do a very brief introduction to the I Am bill. This is a bill sponsored by Pat Jalen, our own Pat Jalen, and Christine Barber, as well as Jay Livingstone of the City of Boston. And it's a bill sponsored by Mass Now to ensure across the state of Massachusetts that women, girls, and all who menstruate would have access to free menstrual products, as we do here in Somerville, in schools, and also in prisons, and there's another area, I want to say municipal buildings, and homeless shelters. So again, we're leading the way in Somerville. We have this in our schools. This is really just a resolution to sponsor a statewide bill.
Okay.
And it was passed in by Councilor Strezzo in City Council, and I think, given our purview of schools, it might make sense for us to also speak on this.
Okay, are there any questions, Mr. Green?
So I know the IM bill is a slightly different version, but we have already endorsed this bill in the past, so I'm happy to move to suspend the rules and just endorse it again tonight, because again, this is a bill we are on record in a virtually identical version of having supported last 2 sessions. So I will suspend the rules.
I have a motion to suspend
Second.
the rules. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion carries. So now I have a resolution. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Dr. Phillips, seconded by Mr. Green. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to the next resolution. Mr. Buchon.
Lovely, thank you. Through you, Chair Krepchen. This resolution is entitled School Committee Resolution on Actions to Promote Student and Community Health and Resilience in the Era of Climate Change. It builds on the resolution that this body passed, I want to say 2 years ago, and its commitment to moving toward a zero carbon school, basically carbon budget, but makes requests, and by the way, I just want to say, we heard some testimony tonight in support of this, and this was brought to me and passed also in the City Council, and I've worked with the City Councilors who sponsored it and the advocates to develop it. But essentially, it's asking the city to coordinate with the public schools to convene an interdisciplinary team to oversee the development of a concrete plan to produce the results that we want to see on zero carbon schools. So I will not belabor the point. There are 3 asks essentially, and one of them is very detailed with specific calls for what the work should be with the city. And then the subsequent points are requesting to adopt appropriate measures and practices to assess, monitor, and maintain the healthfulness of the schools and their physical environment in the context of climate change, and then to report annually, that the city would report annually to the school committee on updated measures on the progress of that plan. So, sorry if I muddled that, it's very late.
Yep, Ms. Parrish.
Through you, Chair. I haven't been able to read every word of this yet. I apologize for that. But I did notice when I was reading it over, or I guess I've read it all, but I haven't really digested it yet. I did notice that there is an exception of the current Winter Hill at Sycamore Street, which I understand because we're not using that building anymore, but also of the Brown School. And I was curious about why we would not do a comprehensive study of the Brown School when the future of that building is still unclear. It might, in fact, help clarify what we will do.
Mr. Buchon?
Through you, my understanding is that the Brown School's heating system is substantially different than those of the other schools in our district, and the air infiltration systems that we're looking to improve are not relevant for the Brown School. So that I believe was the intention for excluding the Brown School.
Ms. Parrish?
I agree and believe those things to be true. I guess I still think it would be valuable to conduct a comprehensive study of the building envelope, et cetera, which is what appears to be in the list of this. So whether, I mean, potentially not everything should be done at the Brown School because certain systems don't exist there, but I do think it would be valuable to include the Brown School, at least in part, as long as that building is expected to be in use for the near future. Once, clearly, if the city decides that the Brown School will not be in use, then it wouldn't make sense to spend a lot of money conducting these studies. But until that point, I think it would be valuable. So I would recommend, or I would support an amendment to that effect.
Do you want to propose some exact language before our next meeting?
I would just suggest removing the word Brown School from that parenthetical phrase there in point 1 of the resolved part.
I'd accept the friendly amendment.
Okay, sounds good. All right, that will be on our agenda for our next meeting. So that brings us to I'm sorry, thank you, Ms. Patone.
Sorry, through you. I just wanted to thank the team of parents and community members that brought this forward. They really did an extensive amount of work, an extensive amount of advocacy within the public officials, and it's tons of research, obviously, and they brought experts to this work, which we don't always have access to. So I also thank my colleague for bringing this forward to the committee. I also just wanted to reference, I'm not saying I want to make an amendment or not, but I very much appreciate there's an accountability around reporting to the school committee, but I think that the city should be putting this public. This kind of information should be reported on and posted publicly somewhere in the website. So I don't know if that should be included here or not. It's something we can follow on afterwards, because I don't know if we want this to look exactly like the one that City Council did, or it doesn't matter. But that would be something that I would be appreciating included somehow.
Okay. Mr. Bitton?
I very much appreciate that. The intention of the report to school committee was exactly to have a public reporting mechanism, but I take your point that a website might be more publicly accessible, so I'm open to that.
Okay, sounds good. With that, I have a severance agreement that I need a motion to approve, authorize me to sign.
I move to approve the agreement with the Assistant Superintendent of Operations and authorize the chair to sign.
Second.
I have a motion by Dr. Phillips, seconded by Ms. Patone. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. I have an approval of an integrated bargaining agreement.
I move to, approve the integrated collective bargaining agreement between the Somerville School Committee and the SMEA Unit C school nurses for the period of September 1, 2023 through August 31, 2026, and authorize the chair to sign.
I have a motion by Ms. Barish. Is there a second? Second. Dr. Phillips, is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to an approval of a side letter with the SEU.
I move to approve the side letter with SEU Unit A regarding early childhood itinerant educators 209-day work year.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Barish, seconded by Dr. Phillips. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to the official motion to approve our budget, which we did in Finance and Facilities, but we also need to do it in public session. So I will entertain a motion for that.
I move to approve the FY25 SPS budget for the amount of $106,747,015.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Green, seconded by Ms. Patone. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to a diploma request.
Motion to approve the FY24 Somerville High School diplomas for Cristian Molino Hernandez and Sylvia Mary Martinez Castro, both of Somerville.
I have a motion by Ms. Patone, seconded by Dr. Phillips. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and congratulations to our newest graduates. And now we have a Scale Gold Diploma.
I move to accept the superintendent's recommendation to approve Scale Gold Diplomas for the following students: Doris Reina Rivera, Denise Madrid Hernandez, and Oscar Gomez Alfaro, all of Somerville.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Green, seconded by Mr. Vitone. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations to our other newest graduates. Now we have some field trips to approve.
I move to approve the following trips. June 13th, 2024, 82 8th grade students from East Somerville Community School will travel to Canopy Lake Park in Salem, New Hampshire. Travel via bus. Student cost $30.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Barish, seconded by Ms. Patone. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to grant funds.
I move to accept all federal entitlement and continuation grants and all state continuation grants awarded to the Somerville Public Schools listed below. Private Harvard-Radcliffe Emerging Leadership Program for 2 liaisons to participate for $10,000. A federal FC number 209, Improving Ventilation and Air Quality in Public School Buildings for $692,889, and a state FC number 126, Computer Science Professional Development for $41,035.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Patone, seconded by Mr. Betone. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to items from committee members. Does anyone have anything? Mr. Betone?
Don't worry. I want to bring to the attention of everyone that the next building maintenance and facilities subcommittee meeting held jointly with our counterparts in City Council will be held on May 29th. Do I have that right? I do. I'm seeing nods. Really glad we could get this on the calendar, and just wanted to make everyone aware that that was happening.
Thank you for that. Are there any other items from committee members? Seeing none, do we have any condolences this evening? Okay, then with that, we are adjourned. Have a good night, everyone.